Okay, it's 3:01, and I'll call the meeting to order. Duly constituted, quorum is present, and the first order of business is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion? Motion, thanks, and a second. Discussion. To avoid Bill having to sit through the minutiae of quite a lot of stuff, may I suggest that we move 8A out of order below 5. Does that work, Peter?
Sure. I didn't think there was going to be anything else before.
Well, there's one more thing that I'd like to hear about.
Okay.
Maybe depending on, it may be moot. But the one thing I was going to ask about was, did you have, just more as a reminder, I think, do you have your report on the CA conference yet? Kelowna conference.
I did it. I'm not sure when.
You said last time that you were going to produce a report.
Yeah.
So no is the answer. Okay, so
like Alzheimer's, it might be done.
That's the best possible answer.
I think it's done.
I don't think we use the disease excuse that often. Okay, well, in that case,
and you did that so humbly,
maybe
Peter.
I can bring that forward to
that's
tonight's
fine.
meeting if it's done.
Okay, so will anybody else have anything under 7 reports? Okay, then the issue is moot because then we'll go straight to Bill anyway. So I'll take that back off the table. So moved and seconded approval of the agenda. All in favour? Opposed, that carries. Public participation, none. We'll move on to minutes of the previous meeting. Kicking off on page 3.
I heard no changes.
Can I have a motion to adopt these minutes, please? Thanks. And a second. Any changes? Adds, subtracts, deletes, divides, logarithms, integrals? No. All in favour of adoption? And opposed? That carries. Business arising action items report on page 7. We should be able to whip through these fairly fast. Staff to investigate with input from the auditors, setting the fire department up as a separate fund like water and sewer. Are we going to be hearing about that, Pam?
Yes.
Fine.
Yes.
Sure, sounds
Yes.
good to me.
Okay, good. So
so-
we'll discuss it during your input there, Bill. That's great, thank you. Number 2, staff to review the idea of having more detail in the council minutes and possibly, not all possibly, insert timestamps in the minutes in correlation with the recording of the meeting. Where do we stand on that?
We are still assessing the timestamps are in, but we're still verifying accuracy once they're uploaded to YouTube.
You know, I missed that entirely. I was looking in the left-hand side, not the right. That's great. So, I mean, that's very easy to do. You just listen.
Yeah, but once they're uploaded to YouTube, there may be a compression factor, so
Very
it may
good.
not be that accurate. We're still.
I'm very confident it will work fine. But okay, so you can take that. Item number 2 is done as far as I'm concerned, as long as we continue that. I'm very confident it will work. Why do I say that? When I did my check,
when you did your hand?
of a meeting was 2 hours and 4 minutes, and the YouTube audio was 2 hours and 4 minutes. That's a pretty good correlation. So if we just put the timestamps in, we'll be able to find things that much easier.
Well, you'd be close. You wouldn't be like 15 minutes. Okay.
At least it doesn't mean you
Yeah,
have to.
it's within reason, then it's good.
Oh, I'm fine within 5 minutes. Item number 3, staff to respond to Mr. Andrew's request for information regarding the budget of public works manor remuneration.
That's me. Yes, this afternoon. I've typed it. I just have to send it.
I think we'll consider that a done.
Okay.
3 can come out, Shauna. And number 4, staff to include a public works staff allocation of time pie chart in the annual report.
Yes, we've done the chart, but it will be for inclusion in the annual report. So
Cool.
I mean, I guess you could say that's done. We'll present everything to you when we start working on the annual report.
Excellent. Okay, so we actually seem to have knocked off all of those, Shauna. That's great. Unfinished business, I don't believe there's any.
So, what happens to the action items that were part of the IRR? Should that not go into this?
They came as a resolution to the main meeting of council and were resolved, and they
So how
are
do we track them?
the
So-
IRR system.
We're on the master.
Yeah, so I'm going to be working towards creating a master index of resolutions. So, and what I'd like to actually see, this is probably a good time to just bring it up briefly, because we don't want to spend too much time talking about it right now, but I'd like to see action items actually disappear in their current format, because really what we really should have is resolutions from council. It should always be a resolution from council. If there's something to be done, it should be a resolution.
Yeah.
So, and then as long as we track them on a master index, which is the next step. So that way we'll have resolutions from the meetings that will go on to that, as well as resolutions that come out of the IRRs. So everything will be on an index where we can keep track of them. It'll be searchable. I'm just planning to do an Excel spreadsheet, so we'll be able to search for things that you're looking for, and then track that way. So
What if it's an item that doesn't require a resolution? So for example, like responding to Mr. Ando, if we don't put it down somewhere.
we can make it a resolution.
Oh,
That's the
so every single thing,
yeah. I mean, that's generally how councils do business, is by
It's
resolution.
very contrived and very artificial, but that is how it's done. It does mean that there will be no action items in the guise of resolution that comes out of a council strategy meeting, because no decisions are made at council strategy meeting.
Or those would be recommendations that go to the main meeting. That's what the committee does. That's
Yeah.
what all committees do.
And so then it has to be brought forward and then re-resolved. Yeah. There's no way to run a business. Okay.
Yeah, let's work on it, and we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll tweak it and see where we get, and try and make it work for everybody.
Yeah, I'm trying to reduce work, not increase
Well,
it.
and actually on that topic, just to go for another 30 seconds on this, Peter, I think, one more meeting in May. Carl won't be here. Jim probably not either, don't know. Are you thinking of bringing the IRR report back for the first part of June? I mean, there's no point doing it when only half of us are here.
What's the report is really just a...
Well, I mean, or whether we're gonna chew through another page or...
Oh,
Well, it's on the agenda for tonight.
we've got it tonight, so
Okay,
if we-
so,
I'm thinking we can knock off a few more, depending on time constraints, and then that's plenty to be going on. I mean, some
Oh,
of them
yeah.
are quick.
yeah.
There's no shortage of work.
Oh, yeah, there's no shortage of work, okay.
but maybe we can chew through non-Carl items.
There are none.
There are none.
We can put some.
That'll be a
We
fast,
already
Well, go
did that.
ahead. I'd love to see some.
I think we should wait till he's not here to deal with his issues.
I'd be the first to support some non-Carl issues. That's the mayor. For the recording. Okay, so everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Helen, satisfied?
Yes, so these IRR action items will be moved to,
That's last
That's the
last
last.
meeting,
So there are-
and
I
they
know.
were.
Those are just minutes from the last meeting.
so
right?
they're noted in the actual IRR.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
they moved from the request page to the
Okay,
resolutions page.
so I don't even,
No.
okay.
It is being tracked. Okay, reports, staff, mayor, council, and committees. There being none, we'll move on to new business. Mr. Bill Cox, audit report. Please
Big table.
sit in the hot seat. Welcome.
Thank you.
This is the package everybody has, it's just basically the report and then the financial statements after that.
And Pam, are you gonna go through the financials? Do you want me to make comments on the financials?
Yeah, if you could make comments, that would be great.
Does it make sense to talk financials first? Because things may pop out of there that might have an audit question, or does it matter? Do you have a preference?
You do 40 of these a year.
Yeah.
What's the drill?
I personally like doing the financials
Done.
first, because that's the...
That's good with you, Carl?
That's the important.
Absolutely.
That's the important thing. There we go.
So I see that's,
Pam, you okay with me walking?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
So I'll walk through and hit a couple of highlights in the financials, and I'm sure Pam will jump in with comments or corrections for all the wrong things that I say. On the third, oh, there's one other numbering. So on page 3 to the financials is the auditor's report. Everybody jumps right past that. That's the most important page in the whole thing. being a little facetious, I can't say it.
Facetiously.
Facetiously. What I did want to say is the wording that's in the audit report is a clean audit report, and that means that we had full access to all the information. All our testing worked out well, and we believe the numbers in the following pages are all fairly stated. So that's exactly what you want, and that's what we're going to have this year. Now we aren't quite complete with the audit yet. The last step is approval of the financial statements by council, and when that happens, we go away. We do some final procedures we call subsequent events procedures, which include one more discussion with the lawyer, reading any committee meetings or council meeting minutes that might have happened since we were here. But this year we weren't here too long. When did we leave? It was pretty recently.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's more of a delay. It's good to get it done quickly. So, not a signed audit report yet, but we're 99.9% done. Page 4 is a statement of financial position. This is sort of tells you, I think, your financial health at the end of the fiscal year. I'll just maybe speak to a couple of what the standards folks would say are the key indicators to look at here. Number one is the bottom line, their accumulated surplus. That's referenced, so that's $20 million, which sounds like a lot of money. That's referenced to note 9, which is on page 15. And when you look at note 9, this tells you really the real amount of money that you have. Because the very first line in note 9 says invested in tangible capital assets. That means that's money that's already been spent on infrastructure, so it's not available to do anything else with. It's already in the ground or in the chairs or in the computers. So we break that out to sort of highlight the fact that there is not $20 million worth of cash sitting around at City Hall. So what you really have is reserve funds, $719,000 this year. That includes gas tax money in there, and unrestricted amounts, which are the fund balances from general fund, water fund, sewer fund. So
That is the depreciated asset number.
depreciated asset number, yeah. Based on historical cost, so it's not saying that's what it would cost to replace it. That's historical cost, which is the way us accountants think, at least in the short term. So I think those levels of reserves and unrestricted amounts, they're a little bit higher than last year, so it's an improvement in financial standing. I don't think, one of the things we always want to look at with local government is there too much money sitting around at City Hall? Because if it's sitting in your bank account, it's not in the taxpayers in their individual bank accounts. So we always sort of take a look and see if we think it's too high. You know, that I don't think you could be accused at all of having, with those levels, of having too much money sitting around.
Do you at any stage, I know not here, but at a sort of separate process, opine on the how prudent we are in our reserve balances? I mean, you know, that's one of our big challenges, is how much should we retain? So this year we somewhat arbitrarily elected in our budgeting process to not draw on reserves very much at all, and hence we have very little money to play with, because whatever we spend we're going to have taxed for. As you probably know, we raised our tax to 12%. That doesn't give us a lot of money to play with. Is that number prudent?
Yeah, I certainly don't think it's too high. It's a tough one to give a real opinion on without jumping in and doing a whole lot of work. You know, it depends on age of infrastructure, replacement plans, unused debt. There's so many variables, including philosophy that councils have. Some councils have anything we build, we're going to finance it so that the taxpayers that use it will be paying for it. Others have no, we're going to save money so we don't have to go into debt, because debt really ties your hands, of course. So I don't think there's such thing as a right answer. It's the kind of thing you could do a study on and just see that there was some consistency in thinking. That's probably a good thing.
Well, we're also looking at that. And one more question, Bill. Would it be feasible to state the asset number as two numbers, at cost minus depreciation?
Yeah, you can actually see that in Schedule 3.
Okay, so that is available.
So that is there. So that says the cost. Well, first, this is a really small font, which is gonna test
That's
my,
really good, eh?
test my eyes. 27
Million.
million,
Page, what are we looking at?
very last
Very last
page,
page.
very last
Very,
page.
very back.
Oh, yeah.
27 million cost, 7.3 million amortization, which is the same as depreciation, net carrying amount 19,997.
And if we say our average age of assets is what, 20, 30 years, that means in theory, 7 million over 27 million is about a quarter in round numbers. That says we're supposed to have 3/4 of our asset life still remaining to us. If we take some sort of blended,
True, no, true.
asset
Don't,
age.
yeah, don't forget though, if you look at the very first column there, we got $11 million in land. So we sort of
okay,
have to
yeah.
subtract that out of
Okay, yeah.
out of the mix there. But yeah, that's a good sort of quick and dirty analysis, I think, that you got there.
Which is not prudent, because some of it, infrastructure is already on its last legs. It certainly doesn't have 3/4 of its life left, absent the land.
Bill, back to the reserve balances, because your firm does audit both the bigs but also the small municipalities across Western Canada. And our more or less $1.5 million-ish in restricted and unrestricted reserves is a smallish number. If it was $500,000 less or $500,000 more, it's kind of, that's not a big banana either way in reality. So what is your sense with the other communities? I mean, are they taxing high enough, or are they selling stuff so that they're continually putting money in there? I think Bowen actually starts putting, splits up their assets and puts a percentage of their tax money into each one of these categories.
Yeah,
Which what a wonderful situation to be in.
yeah. There's so much variety out there. I don't know if there's a real best practice that's developed yet. What we sort of say, forgetting about the capital needs, a real rough rule of thumb is when we look at the expenses here. So on page 5, the expenses are $3.1 million.
Okay.
We say, and especially for a small community, where it takes a huge tax increase to get any sort of big number of dollars, we say it's not a bad idea to have a pretty reasonable size reserve there, somewhere between 1/4 to 1/2 of the annual expense. So that would be, say, $750,000
Okay,
to
so we're there.
1.5.
1.5.
And then on top of that, you start thinking about what do we need for capital replacement.
So using the 1/4 to 1/2, let's call it again, let's call it $1.5 million to 3.1. We're kind of at 1/2, close enough. So we're at the bare bones number.
And then on top of that,
And then,
capital. What do we need for capital?
okay.
And a lot of, and you alluded to it there, and a lot of
So-
communities are adding
So it's
some.
1/2 plus, let's call it average 3-year capital, just to pick a number. Okay.
Depends on length of infrastructure and all
Right.
these sorts of things. But yeah, I think roughly speaking.
Well, I mean, you can take that. I mean, I know this is not a financial advisory session. I know this is an audit report, but if you do look at those individual asset categories on Schedule 3 on the final page, you can see that given the accumulated amortization, many of them are, in fact, given the fact that land is worth the significant portion of it, many of them are reaching the end of their
no
their
doubt.
book life.
Oh no, I think we're at the.
And their actual life, as it happens.
If this was a cat, they'd all be 58 years old.
Yeah, so that tells me that we, Lions Bay, would be needing to start erring on the side of laying in capital, given the discussion around who should pay for it, future residents or past. So back to your statement of operations, Bill. To my knowledge, Pam, this is the first time I've seen a BVA. Is that correct? For 2015.
Sorry, BVA?
What's a BDU?
Budget versus actual?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
That's a requirement, has to be.
No, it's the first time I have seen these numbers.
Oh, I see.
So this shows me that we made $320,000 less than we expected, and we spent $200,000 less than we expected.
Now, you gotta take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, because if you look at that line in the revenue called government transfers,
Yeah.
that includes capital grants that might have been achieved.
But deferred to future years, because we did have that at 260 that we didn't spend.
But not as high. So look at that. Look at the difference in the government transfers.
Yeah.
Budget $1,054,000, actual 707.
Yeah.
Flip the page, and this is where you see the capital spending, and you see the fiscal plan acquisition of tangible capital assets. That's infrastructure, 625,000. Actual spend only 266. So that's kind of the offset of the two. So it looks like you're down 300,000 in revenue, but you're also down 300,000 in capital expenditure.
And that was the Build Canada grant.
Yeah.
Essentially, that it was
I
budgeted for the
assumed
full
so,
amount,
given the
but
number.
most of it's being accrued, being rebudgeted in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, I still trying to get my head around this booking capital transfers as revenue, but not as expenditure. So it needs a second schedule.
Yeah, it's quite contentious in the accounting world
Yeah.
these days, but I think the battle's been lost, but there's all sorts of arguments on both sides.
Yeah.
But
Capital grants are not income, but okay. Okay. Good. Thank you.
So if you take that, so if we're looking at page 5, statement of operations, so if you take that difference in the government transfers out of the revenue, then you're really sort of bang on with
Yep.
all your revenues.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the expenses, and these are highly summarized here, just into the functional areas, general water, sewer. Schedule 1 and 2, later in the back, gave you the detail between protective services and parks and rec and all those sorts of things. But when you look at it on the summarized basis, really good result. Everything under budget. Not hugely, but certainly
Well, under
good.
budget is not necessarily good, to my mind, in the municipal world, because it means we're taxpayers, unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Now, in theory, we keep track of that, right? And we spend it this year, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would say if you're hundreds of thousands of dollars under budget, yes, but there always should be a little bit of a contingency in there. So that
Well, we are. We're $200,000 under budget.
yeah.
That's
Fair
not
comment.
insubstantial. That's in round. That's a 20% tax increase. Now, much of that was to be drawn from reserves that we didn't spend last year, that we sort of put back in reserves this year by some sort of fairly circuitous means. But yeah, okay, it is what it is.
Fair comment, I think. Pam or anybody else, any other things to mention on financial position or operations? Those are the main statements, and of course the statements carry on for pages and pages, but these are the main numbers. Anything you
I
want
think
to
just the Build Canada, which we've already talked about, that that's the big difference between the revenue and the expense, with the revenue side
Yeah,
is
as I said,
that.
I still can't get my head around putting capital grant in revenue. And as soon as you said it, I remembered that's what it was. What about the AR and AP numbers? Are you good with those? Is that sort of a reasonable number? 205 AR?
Yes, I don't recall. I don't think there's anything unusual or anything old in there. Pam, I'm just going by
No.
memory, but
Yeah.
And I assume that's
And,
only unpaid taxes, is that correct?
Some of it would be unpaid taxes. I'm trying to do a sheet in front
yeah,
of me.
there's a few other things in
A
there.
few other things. The grants receivable, the large amount of that is the amount owed by the DFA. That's the disaster funding.
And
So
you would
that's why
write that
the
in
big
as an
increase.
AR?
I'm sorry?
You would put that down as accounts receivable?
Oh, yes, definitely, because it's been confirmed. We wouldn't have if they hadn't confirmed they're paying us, but we have
Okay, that's what it is, mostly.
documentation that they're paying us. So that's the grants receivable increase.
Oh no, that's grants receivable. Yeah, it was almost around 200, sure.
Right.
But what's the 205?
This
There-
taxes, yeah. And
taxes
most of
is a
it's
big-
taxes would be a big chunk of it. And it seems like a large number when you think of our entire tax.
It does.
Base.
It's $400 per property owing, and it's, I know I paid my taxes, so that's one down.
We
Yeah,
always
please.
check the mayor's first to make sure
Yeah,
he's paid.
yeah.
That's right. And councillors.
As you should. Yeah, go ahead.
The province has actually been a little bit slow recently doing the property tax deferment. They have mentioned that they're going to speed up. So there's quite a few outstanding that have now been paid by the province. Their deferral process has been quite slow, which is why the accounts receivable for the last 2 years has been higher.
But you
And
do
they're
know the
commenting on
number.
that.
You know what we need.
Oh,
I assume the province is good for it. although-
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
And they've paid most of them.
Yeah.
They have been slow, they've been a backlog.
But that's a big chunk of it,
Yeah.
that we book it as revenue when we send the property tax
Sure.
bills out, but the revenue, for anyone deferring it, the province takes a while to pay us. And it was particularly slow this year, which they have acknowledged in a webinar I just took.
And 325 AP, the higher the better as far as I'm concerned, but,
Well, except for I think you want to be a good corporate citizen.
well, exactly.
and
Not really,
Keep
no.
everybody paid. So I don't think I don't recall there being anything old or unusual
No.
in there. We can
No.
really-
But what is it? I
It
mean,
might be the master plan, might be the.
some of it might be the master plan, but that's, I mean, the whole caboodle is only 140. And we had paid a good portion of it, so that's not all of the 325.
So in that, I can,
Haley knows.
Go ahead, Pam.
no, go ahead. I was just saying.
75 is the school tax.
Right.
That is due, we pay it January the 8th, so I think it's 75 or
Yeah.
79 this year was left over. And the rest literally just accounts payable from people not invoicing us until January, February, the work that was done in December.
Okay.
And I can give you more detail. Sorry, I should have brought the lead sheets with me, but I can give more detail.
No, as long
But
as
the
you're
school
happy with
tax is
it.
always a big one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's really not, this year, nothing unusual, old, questionable, everything's kind of up to date. Anything else on those pages? Yeah?
Nope, I think that was it. Yes.
After that, we get into all the sort of required accounting disclosure. There's not a lot to point out here unless you have any questions. There's one or two things I would point to on page 10. Accounting policies, there's a new accounting policy this year called contaminated sites. This was a lot of work for staff to do. And the requirement is to go through your inventory of real property and see if there's any contamination on those properties above a legislated standard, and if there is, you have to accrue the cost to remediate that property. How staff went through the work, and at the end of the day, there's no liability that pops up.
I think I would just add to that, currently it's property not in use, whereas I think down the road it will probably pertain to the next stage 2 will be looking at all property, but we didn't have a lot of property that was deemed not in use.
Is this municipal crown or is it anything
Municipal.
within the village boundaries?
It has to be village boundaries unless there happened to be something that you were taking responsibility for that was outside your boundaries. I don't know why you would do that.
Yeah.
But
Well, the reason I ask is that the gravel pit used to be used as our dump. It has been remediated, allegedly, and I just heard rumblings recently, as in the last couple of months, that there's some suggestion that potentially it has not been remediated to somebody's. We haven't got the final, I believe it's controlled by Flinro, not by Modi, and I believe we haven't got the final double sealed Flinro sign off, but Haley knows.
That's correct, but also the pit's not owned by us,
Mhm.
so it's not our land, and it's actually Metro takes care of the dump. So for this round of contaminated sites, even if we did own the landfill, it wasn't included in this round. We
But I
don't
certainly
own
think our use of it would mean that
it.
we
It's
would.
not our land, though, we don't own the land, so it wouldn't be part of our contaminated
I'm aware
sites.
we don't own the land. That needs to be reversed, by the way, but that's a different discussion. The fact is that we were the people using it for a dump site, under presumably a license of occupation or something.
Yep.
Certainly, we would be responsible for the costs of cleanup if they haven't been done.
That's a separate thing than this.
Right. I mean, it would be covered under Metro Vancouver's contaminated sites.
who
Metros.
just, who
When
just,
they have
It would?
who just
Yeah.
happened to be our client too, so I know the answer to that one, but I can't tell you.
I know too, because I sit in a lot of those closed committee meetings. Okay, I mean, for the purposes of these statements,
Yes.
satisfactory work has been done too in order to make the statement. That's fine.
Yes.
Although I do believe that we are still expecting a certificate from Flinro. Is that? Oh, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know because you just got here. It's not financial, it's operational.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Public Works Manager.
I think the only other thing I would point out, probably, well, maybe two things. One is note 6 on page 14. There's nothing new in this note. I just think it's always, anytime you read a financial statement, you should always look at this note, contingent liabilities and commitments, because this is where the sort of interesting stuff can pop out if there's anything. For example, if you did have any potential contingencies that you or management were aware of with the gravel pit, this is the kind of place where it would get disclosed. There's nothing new here. It's virtually the same as last year. And then I think the last thing to mention that I would mention is Schedule 1 with the small fonts. I'm thinking when these are published, they're probably going to be
Like the landscape,
right?
yeah, usually.
That's my fault, sorry.
It's okay.
It's a good test. I think this is always a good way to look at results. So there's a requirement to break down the results, the revenues and the expenses by the different areas of the municipality in terms of the way that you manage it. So there's no set grouping, but the groupings you have here: general government, protective services, public works, solid waste, planning and development, parks and rec, water, sewer. Very logical divisions, and this shows the revenue and expenses for each area. And you'll notice that in the very first column, general government, that's where all the property taxation revenue goes. So the other areas, so if you look at the next column over, protective services, you see it says deficiency of revenue over expenses, 144,116 at the bottom. So that's really saying it's funded to the extent of 144,000 by general taxation. So I think it's you get sort of a good picture of what's going on and where the funding is coming from in this schedule.
The terms for the departments at the top, the cost centers, protective services specifically, is that mandated by
No.
some sort of provincial reporting requirement?
Whatever you like. So I know fire department is an issue, so there could be a column for fire department on its own.
Okay. Yeah, so it is. I suppose it's valid to say that the general fund supports parks, rec, and culture to the tune of 150k, but that's quite a lot.
Yeah. So I think that's always a good thing to kind of take a look at.
I mean, it's all labor. 115,000 in labor. What is that, Pam?
Sorry, the labor?
In Parks
Yeah.
and Rec.
In
Parks
Parks
and
and
Rec?
Rec, yeah. It's public works time. Some of it is public
We have one park, and
recreation and culture. So
that
it's-
includes the municipal grants.
Yes, but there would be no labor component of that.
Okay, well, we're not going to start
Yeah.
nailing down these things, but this is. It's not the first time we've seen actuals, but it's because we've seen them as sort of a prelude to the budget. But some of these numbers give me cause for pause anyway.
Well, ultimately, we're just allocating the cost that's already there, so it's what
I suppose. I mean, but
it's
you
what
know,
they take their timesheet for, that they
Right.
were either cutting grass here, there, fixing a ditch. I mean, to Carl's point, there's only one park. Well, there's three little ones, but nonetheless. But,
80, we spent 87 in labour last year. Seems. I mean, it may just be reallocations, don't it?
I'd write up the timesheets though. I mean, the comments in the earlier section is that the timesheets are supervised and signed off, double signature. So,
Wow.
that's where the time went.
I mean, what that says is we've got more than one FTE working on parks.
It is also community and facilities. So it's not just parks, it's parks, rec and culture.
And culture.
So it's all of those things are in that cost centre.
Well, what things?
What things?
All facilities, so any work on any buildings, whether it's this building, the hall,
The clap
the
building.
yard, the clap building, all of that is classed as facilities.
So
And
public
then
works
community-
operation 154. That's on top.
Yes,
That's transportation. Public works and transportation.
so roads and,
No, labour. It's a labour number 154.
you work on roads, that's what I'm saying. The public works number, transportation, so it's public works, time on roads and,
Okay, well, we're not going to bore Bill with breaking down these numbers, but
For the
Okay.
time, just to go ever so for a second down to the minutia, because there was significant mention of the timesheets, which, considering when prior council, it was certainly at the early part, there was less attention to timesheets and where everybody did spend their time. Now it's quite clear where everybody does, and the supervisor signs off.
yes.
How many areas are there on the timesheets to to take?
The division is mostly in public works, and, well, only in public works, and I would say 10?
10 to 12.
10 to 12?
So
Yeah.
the 10 to 12 represents the 3 or 4 main areas,
Right.
and so that's ultimately the result.
That's right.
Okay.
Which is signed off by the public works manager and then comes to finance.
Well,
Bill, you're satisfied that our accrual for sick time, overtime, everything's hunky-dory?
Yes, yes, yeah. That certainly was a area of interest a couple of years back, as you know, and I think good attention to detail there.
Yeah. There's no need to make additional provision for untaken vacation because labour is booked at the time that it's earned, and that includes whatever vacation component is in the number, I presume. So I know this, I'm just really
Yes.
saying for everybody's benefit,
Yes.
is that we don't accrue extra for vacation, including, what about unearned vacation taken?
We wouldn't take unearned vacation. Like at the end of the year, anybody who's owed vacation, we set up a liability for every amount of vacation that is owed to a staff member at the end of the year.
so it'd just be in the AP then?
Well, no, it wouldn't be, because
Oh, it's accrued.
that's a spreadsheet, that's not a financial spreadsheet, because they've been paid.
No, but anything that's owed at the end of the year, if anyone has not taken their vacation by the end of the year, then a liability is set up for that.
They get paid out.
They have the option of getting paid out, but at year end they wouldn't have been paid out. So at December 31st, we set up a liability for all untaken vacation that's legally owed to the employee for either contract.
And do we have any of that?
Yes,
And it is going to be paid out, or
paid out or taken. I mean, sometimes it's just a few days, and people just take them in the new year.
Okay, so
We keep track of it, like we don't allow people
it's really a
to
contingent
have huge
liability,
amounts.
isn't
I
it?
mean, there's constrictions
it's
by
a-
the
it-
QP agreement.
It's been
and-
earned, so it's a real liability.
It's a real liability.
Yeah, that's true, but it does, you're saying usually it gets
But there's restrictions.
offset, but because people take the vacation in the end.
Well, no, we set up a new liability. Like if someone gets 3 weeks vacation, they earn that throughout the year, and then they take it. But if they've only taken 2 weeks, we owe them a week's vacation at the end of the year. A dollar value is put to that, and that becomes a liability. But there's, there's rules in the QP agreement about when you take that. So we do monitor to make sure people don't have huge amounts of vacation owing to them. It's not allowed to happen for the QP agreement. And with the 3 managers, we monitor it as well.
Okay, so
But
this
being
was the
paid
question
out
I've
is
been
an
asking.
option. But being paid out is an option. If someone did have vacation, they do have the option of having it paid out. But at December 31st, they wouldn't have had it paid out. So there's always
Sure.
a liability.
So there is a
at the end of the
liability
year.
set
At
up
the end of the year, always.
for earned untaken vacation. Okay, good.
Yes.
And we see that year to year.
Yes.
Okay,
There's
good.
quite a worksheet done on that the auditors look at closely.
Yes,
Okay.
and it ends up on page 4, and there's a line, sick, overtime, wellness, and vacation payable. That's all of those sort of benefit
That's exactly
payable
what I
amounts,
wanted.
all in one.
Okay, good. And that's net because we had a special circumstance this year, at least for a while. It may not have lasted through to year end, where future vacation was used in lieu of sick pay. But that was taken care of.
It was just future to the end of the year, so it was.
It wasn't
but actually,
future
future was
vacation.
future sick time, and it was only a few days.
Yeah, it was no future vacation, it was vacation that they already had.
Yeah.
It wasn't future vacation.
No.
Nobody took any future vacation.
They just had a large vacation bank, which they'd earned that year, and they used that for the sick time.
My understanding from the CEO at the time, not you, your predecessor, was that they were going to need to draw 2 months of as yet unearned vacation in order to take that sick pay.
They're
Sick
not
time.
unearned. It was earned vacation.
No, I was told unearned.
We might have given them the vacation to the end of the year in the calculation, but I don't think the person needed it. And then we allowed them to draw on their vacation, their sick time to the end of the year, but that's only a day a month. So
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was the whole point. That was going to be used up very quickly.
Mhm.
They didn't have enough earned vacation, so they were given a draw.
No,
Yeah,
that's
no.
incorrect.
they had enough.
Okay, that's not what I was told by Peter's
Anyway,
predecessor.
at the end of the year, it was
Yeah.
complete wash. There's nothing in that liability.
Okay, good. I'm sure you were tracking
Yeah.
it. So okay, fine. So the number is 52,000 in
Correct,
let's call it staff liability.
correct.
Is that sort of a reasonable number?
That's also a hard one because many local governments have extremely rich sick day accumulation plans. So there is some small to mid-sized municipalities with, I was just one the other day, 2.5 million.
Which is real.
Well, there's an argument that it's not real because, well, I guess we won't get into it. Some of the sick time doesn't really cost you anything because the other staff, if somebody's just away for 2 days, the other staff feel that it doesn't really cost you anything.
Yeah.
If you have to backfill, then there's an out-of-pocket cost. So this is the other big argument accountants have is it still all a liability for it? It's not going to cost us anything.
Yeah, I'm more thinking about if the people to whom that number applied were to leave today, they would be paid out.
Yes.
We put out the vacation,
Yeah.
but not the sick
Yeah,
time.
the sick time is almost negligible. Yeah.
Well, no, it isn't. People who have been here a while have earned a lot of sick time
Unused.
and unused,
Oh.
and they would not, if they were to leave today, that would not be paid out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we book
But
it
that
as a
number is-
liability, but that includes the sick time, which is
Why do we
probably,
book it as a liability if we never pay it?
probably to be conservative, and we go on the.
The theory, there is some debate amongst
Mhm.
accountants, but there's no doubt that that's the rule. The theory is, if you have enough staff that people can be off sick and you don't have to backfill, then you've got too many staff. So we need to account for this having too much staff.
Yeah.
It's a little out there, but that's the
Yeah,
theory.
no, I get it. Yeah, yeah. Okay. While I'm thinking about it, apropos of almost nothing, are you okay with us changing the font of this to match our corporate font in the annual report? Or do you?
Of the audit report, because
Yeah.
that's the only page that we have any say on. You can use whatever font you want for anything else, but the answer is yes.
Okay.
As long as it's not Comic Sans.
That would be inappropriate.
I have a quick question. I think I asked this last year, but with regards to the amortization expense, is that not on page 17 and throughout? Is that like an in and out number? Or is it an actual expense? Did we put this money in somewhere?
It's a non-cash expense. So we've already paid for the asset, so the
Yep.
cash went out 20 years ago maybe, or 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. But we don't expense it at the time, we expense it over the life of the asset, so a little chunk each year. And this is the little chunk related to,
But it's a non-cash.
doesn't take any cash at all.
We don't physically pay for it. We physically pay for like $100 asset, but instead of expensing the $100, probably too low a number, in year one, we do, maybe if it's a 10-year life, we expense $10 a year for 10 years.
I mean, this is my big bone of contention with municipal accounting. The reason to do that is for tax. That's, corporations are not allowed to write it all off at once. The government forces them to write it off over time. But what do we care? We're not even paying tax.
Well, no, but I think what they're trying to get after is what are the true costs of operations. So if we have to buy a fire truck every 10 years or computers every 3 years or whatever it is, and we should really expense that so we know the true cost of operations.
Yeah, no, I get it, of course, but yeah.
And I think what I have, and this is not an accounting opinion, this is just personal opinion, but what I've been saying to people is, since that is non-cash, but it's an expense you have to have, actually take that money, put it aside and tax for it, put it aside and have a pool of money to buy assets with.
Yes, so would that go into the capital replacement program?
Yeah, exactly it.
If we had the cash, sure. And I don't disagree with that entirely, although what I would prefer to see us doing, depending on the nature of the asset, is to have a realistic amortization schedule so the thing dies on the day that it's supposed to die.
Well, and that's how it should be. So you adjust those lives are set when you buy them, and then they're looked at over the useful life. So you should, in theory, never end up with an asset that's completely written off until the day you throw it in the garbage.
Until you do write it off.
Yeah.
And then you take new loans for new. And off you go, assuming you had the ability to raise debt money.
Yeah, if that's your philosophy. Some municipalities have we're going to save first so we don't ever need debt.
I don't want to pay for 20 years from now as fire engine, but it is a balance, fully understand. And I know
Two
you're
different philosophies.
yeah, you're the big proponent of the former philosophy. I know, and I don't disagree. Okay.
Well, that's usually when I make that sort of presentation, I get heckled off the stage at that point. But that's
Well,
neither here nor there.
The reality is, we don't have sufficient debt capability, so we have to start. And I hear horror stories about Westband, for example. You may know the same number. They have a 200-year shortfall in asset. Their funding will take them 200 years to replace their assets at current rate.
No, I did not know that. So.
Yeah, I wish I could. Some may have told me, not Mike Smith. Apparently, I may have dreamed it as well.
And then you have Burnaby that could probably buy assets for everybody else because they've got enough left over. So.
Yeah, they keep building big buildings. Well, yeah, they are very conscious of tax increases. I mean, it was mentioned that we were going for a 12% tax increase, and the mayor of Burnaby just about had a conniption and said that he had to fight for a 1.2% tax increase, which is unrealistic. Okay.
So that was the number side, and if there's no more questions, we should probably just talk a little bit about the audit side, because there's a couple of things that I have to make sure we talk about, like materiality and all those good things. Is that okay to jump into that?
I'm good.
You've got a letter from us. Did they have any? They probably didn't have much time with this letter, did they?
Yeah, it went out yesterday,
Oh, that's
so
so
they've had a little bit of.
It's the first time I've seen it.
it's.
I have a day job.
I was going to say that's not a lot of lead time, so sorry for that. But it was a pretty fast turnaround.
It was very fast.
At your end, which is better than the alternative, because we've had this meeting in September before, so this is
Not here.
much better. No, we've had Lions Bay in September.
Really?
Yeah.
Not here since I've been here.
No.
Peace out.
Oh, PSAP. Oh, yes, right.
So anyway, we're doing the right thing, getting this done. We're 2 weeks ahead of deadline, so that's perfect. To give you the big picture, as I already said, a clean audit report. There was not a lot of issues. We did not have a lot of screaming matches with Pam and Haley. It was pretty clean all the way through.
What would the nature of those disputes have been, had there been any? Record keeping.
Yeah.
Sometimes disclosure, how things
Such
are
as?
disclosed. There were no examples this year. Last year there was a change in how you showed the gas tax funding.
Yeah.
And I mean,
gas
that was
tax
totally amicable between us, but I saw some things online where some people were very upset about how you had to disclose gas tax funding. I think now we show it flowing through to reserves, but prior people were setting it up as a
Deferral.
deferred revenue.
I think that, in answer to your question, I think for us, the most difficult thing is, and we have situations where this happens, where we come in, staff give us the numbers and say, okay, go knock yourself out, go audit yourself, crazy. And then halfway through the first day, they're back with, oh, we just made these 27 adjustments and all the numbers have changed, we just started to audit. Oh, great, now everything changes again, and then the next day there's another 27 entries and everything changes again. That's when we would probably be yelling and screaming, except for we would do it politely. But not an issue here, so.
Right.
So there's a couple of things I just should make sure we point out. One is this whole concept of materiality. I'm sure I talked about it last year, but it's something we have to talk about it every year, just so you know, just so that you're reminded of what we're doing. This is on page 6 of our report. There's a section called materiality. It says in here, final materiality is $54,000. What that means is that our audit opinion is really saying that all these numbers you've got in your financial statements, we think they're fairly stated, plus or minus $54,000. Cumulative 54,000, not 54,000 each line's out 54,000. In total, we think they're fairly stated, plus or minus 54,000. The reason why we don't say they're exact to the dollar is because we do sampling of transactions. We don't look at every single transaction. We do sampling, and we do that sampling just exactly like a Gallup poll sampling. That's why the Gallup polls say the same sort of thing, right? We're 89% sure the NDP are going to form the next government, plus or minus whatever their polling is. So
They got that one wrong.
that's why I picked that one. So $54,000, that's the level we're working to. It's always a good reminder to know what that means. That means the auditors are a high-level overview of what's going on, and Pam and Haley do not have a $54,000 materiality. They have a 5-cent materiality. Used to be 1 cent before pennies got rid of. Now they have a 5-cent materiality. So they're working right to the nickel, and we're a higher level overview of that. I'm sure I said this before, but also what goes with this concept of materiality is there's certain areas where there's no materiality, and that's anything to do with illegal acts or fraud, whether proven or not. So if we had a suspicion that somebody in Public Works got a free lawnmower because they agreed to use some supplier, that would be a kickback. That would be illegal, and even though it might be a $200 lawnmower, we would still report it to you, even though it would not be close to materiality. In those areas, there's no materiality, and we have nothing to report. But,
And your tests and your work would, in theory, flag items like that.
Could do.
Yeah.
So because we're sampling, we don't look at every transaction, so transactions can get biased. But there's some things that go with that. First of all, the first thing we do is we talk to staff and we say, do you have any concerns about frauds or illegal acts or things? I don't want to picking up Public Works, I'm not trying to, but things Public Works are doing, and they would tell us if they did. The larger the dollar amount of a transaction, the more likelihood it has of getting picked up in the sample. So a $200 lawnmower has less chance than a $10,000 sidewalk paver or whatever it might be. But we do some other procedures, we call them our public perception procedures, where there's certain areas where we kind of drill in, even though materiality would say we don't need to, we kind of drill in a little bit just to see if we have concern with what's going on there. So I certainly couldn't promise you that there's no $200 lawnmowers kicked back from a supplier, but because our testing is just not that granular, I think it's unlikely, and if we did come across anything, we would report.
What about frangible commodities like fuel and chemicals and gravel? Stuff that is not discrete, that is, we buy 500,000 liters of gas a year.
And somebody helps themselves to it.
Yeah, how do we know, could we even know financially? Would you be able to detect siphoning or a wastage or misuse?
So I think we look to what control procedures that the client has set up in that regard, whether they're adequate or not. One thing that is amazing to, well, even to me who's been doing this for a while, is the power of statistics and looking at, you know, so if you're talking about fuel, it will jump out. Because it was always, you know, X gallons per year for the last 10 years, and suddenly it's X plus 300. So those things tend to jump out.
And you would flag, you would notice them?
Anything that jumps out, we ask a question about. These are all areas where there's certainly the audit opinion is certainly not a guarantee that those things aren't happening.
No, I fully understand that.
Yeah.
You know, we around the table, council, don't have the ability to go in and check any of the stuff. We're relying on you. And so I think it sort of behooves us to understand the approach. So, for example, you know, when I was signing checks, and I want to ask you about that, I mustn't forget, I signed a lot of checks for delivery from Super Safe Fuel, or whatever they were called, delivery down to the Public Works yard of gasoline, diesel, propane. Now, propane are cylinders, I suppose, you know, that's a count. But we used a lot of gas, I guess. And I guess the fire department filled up there as well, I assume. But I have no way of putting my hand on my heart and saying that was all kosher. So I'm wondering how I can put my hand on my heart. Other than internal dockets and checks and balances and...
Yeah, I think So I have a standard presentation that I've given a few times called Fraud Exists in Your Organization, because fraud exists in every organization, including mine. So there's something going on. Hopefully, it's somebody taking a pad of paper home, although they're pre-numbered, so I know if Pam takes that home that it's tested. Hopefully it's something minor like that.
Well, it's going to be for doing village work anyway, right? That's all Pam does.
Probably. I don't know why I use that example, but so there are things that go on, and all you can do is set the right. This is the most important thing: is setting the right tone. So this is what we look at: is management setting the right tone? Is council setting the right tone with management? The same things. So just the fact that you're asking these questions is, to me, this is great. It's being brought up. It's being discussed. Because 20 years ago, everybody assumed there's no fraud anywhere.
Yeah.
Our guys would never do that, and turns out they do. So it's just a matter. It's human nature. People will take things. It's a matter of making sure that that's minimized as much as possible. The controls are there, and we really look to what we hear from management and what we hear from council.
Council doesn't know. You know, we have no touch, as you know very well.
But you could hear something in the community. I had a client that is a neighbor of Lions Bay. Well, I guess that narrows it down too much. Somewhere in the Lower Mainland, and one of the councillors said to me, "I have no proof at all, but I just heard in the community that people are selling things off the back of the truck at the works yard." Never would have known that without that, and didn't have any proof. Just said that to us. We took a look, and there were some issues there. So
Yeah, so I mean, we rely on sort of standard things, using fuel only as an example, a hypothetical example. There's presumably a docket system where the level's checked on occasion and a return's filled in. It says we have 87,000 litres left, and it all adds up. You look at those sort of physical procedures as well, not just the financial ones.
that particular example, I don't remember.
No, I mean, you're making it up. I don't know how it's done.
Yeah.
But you would look at operational procedures as well.
Yeah, with a little bit of, but not 100%. So so there's a little bit of one of the audit requirements. This is fun talking about audit theory. One of the requirements is we can't do exactly the same thing every year, so we have to mix it up. So different years we'll take a focus on a different area. One year it might be control over gasoline. Actually, it might be next year now that I'm thinking about it. So we kind of mix it up, and that has the value of staff never really knowing what the auditors are going to look at.
So what did you look at this year?
Procurement was kind of our theme this year, and you'll see when we get to our letter that we did not have much to complain about this year.
We don't have any money to buy anything.
That helps. So that was a good discussion. So we talked about materiality. One of the other things we need to talk about is fraud. We really just did that. It's a requirement. We asked management, we asked council if they're aware of anything, because that helps us take that in and know where to look at. Plus, if there's anything we were aware of, we would bring it forward to you. There's nothing that we have to bring forward to you. So I think the last thing I would mention, am I going over time?
Yep. Take your time, as much time as you need.
The last thing I would mention is our management letter, which is on page 22. And I think the takeaway from this letter, so just as a reminder, management letter is our chance to bring forward some ideas we may have for improvements to processes or controls, those sorts of things that will pop up from us poking through records and comparing to what other local governments are doing, what's the best practice out there. I don't think we need to go through the, so the first 5 points here are points that were raised last year. So we had some points, we brought them forward. I think they were pretty well all acted upon. Accounting for capital assets, we talked about that, making sure they're written off over their actual useful life. There was a couple of errors found last year, so that was dealt with. Segregation of duties is a key accounting control, and it's very difficult to do in a small office because we would like you to have a staff of 75 people. Obviously not possible, so there's some other tweaks that you can do to do that, and I think there are tweaks we're acted upon.
Can I just ask you about that?
Yes.
It's a good time to interject. Up until recently, I signed checks. Until I took the position that I didn't know what I was attesting to. I had no way of knowing if they were correctly allocated, within budget, correctly delivered, executed. Occasionally, by luck, I would see that we would get an $80,000 invoice from CN to fix the level crossing, and lo and behold, I had just happened to have driven across the level crossing and hadn't been fixed. And so, what's this all about? But that was more by luck than by design. So I have stopped signing checks. Instead, council gets presented a schedule of the previous quarter's check run, which is good in a way because everybody gets to see it. Whether we would flag something that was wrong or not, I'm now realizing that without all the backup documentation attached to the check, the invoice, the stamp, the rubber stamp thing that the manager that requested the expenditure says that they got it, and it was. Even so, I have no real comfort that the money that goes out is satisfactorily checked. Is that simply because we're too small to have a meaningful check and balance? Check as not written check, confirmation?
Well, the schedule of expenses I think is a good, or schedule of checks written. That's a good one because you can ask those questions. Any control, this applies to signing checks or anything, any control has value, but has a cost. It's your time in the case of signing checks. So it's always a question of what's the right balance there.
I'm very happy to devote the time. My contention is that I wasn't adding any value because I didn't know. All I was doing was signing a check.
Well, wait, but I heard you say you were doing what you're supposed to do, which is to see that there's an invoice approved by one of the staff to support that. So that is, from a control point of view, that is valuable. Because if somebody's trying to short circuit it and, we forgot to get approval on this one, and it's my brother-in-law's company, but let's just get it through, you would see that. So there's some value to that. Whether that's worth your time, I can't really answer. But
Yeah.
all of these things are a challenge in a small community, small office. It's a little give and take on all those things.
Yeah.
If we totally had our way, I'd have you still sign checks. But
Well, I guess that's where I was
The CAO is
going.
signing them now. So it's still two signatures,
Yeah.
sorry.
yeah,
Myself
that's
and
well,
then
that's
the CAO.
That's true. CAO,
It's doing it
CAO.
instead of, so there's still the two signatories, because that's imperative. I think we have one outside of finance who signs the check.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably more valuable in terms of trapping. In this case, I'm not really interested in fraud. It's more a case of that the goods or services were delivered. Because I see quite a lot of, well, for example, we buy a heck of a lot of pool chlorine. A lot.
Can I just comment that I would not send a check out if I hadn't got approval that we had received the goods and that it was approved to be paid?
Well, and that's the other thing. So, we have an exemplary AP person that woe betide me if I don't make an initial in the right place, because it was caught every time. But that's just our good luck. I'm just wondering how we best manage the process to trap errors, not waste time. And I think this way that we're doing it now is probably a better way.
Yeah, I would agree. I've got that Peter's signing, so that's good. And Peter would know what was going on and
Far better than I. Yeah.
what projects were going on. And
Yeah.
So I think you're doing a pretty reasonable job, given that you don't have the 75 people in finance that we asked for.
I don't see them in the letter yet, so it's not real yet.
We had a point about approval of timesheets. We talked about that already and how that process is fixed. We had a comment. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So with the approval timesheet, actually this is more of a question for Peter. So do we now have a control policy for timesheet? Because it says that there was one and then it wasn't really followed.
an actual policy. Not sure if we have a policy per se, do we?
Well, yeah, how we set it up now that we have the CAO is that the Public Works Manager signs off all of the Public Works timesheets and they come here, and now Peter in his role as CAO is signing off all of the staff timesheets, including mine, staff and management, and then I'm signing off Peter's.
Was it because during the time when we didn't have a CEO, some of it fell through the crack? Was that what happened?
Yeah, I think our comment here relates to before Peter was here.
Okay.
And I was signing them off, which I guess technically is my role, because I was acting CAO at that time, but I was actually signing off the one coming from Maze rather than the actual handwritten timesheet, so it was just my approval was there, but the comment was made I should be signing the other ones, which now Peter is doing.
And presumably that gives us useful statistics as well, in terms of what people are working on, or are you just testing the total hours, the aggregate hours? And in salary case, there are no hours.
Well, there's always what we track our overtime, and we identify what we spent the overtime on, even though we're not compensated for it, we have that statistic as well.
Yeah, so it's more statistical than anything, right? Because everybody's paid a flat rate, and non-exempt staff work a fixed work week.
But, I mean, there is descriptions of time spent on various things.
That's what I mean, statistical
But it's on
stuff.
call. But, I mean, it gives me, for example, an opportunity to look and see, okay, I can see see at a glance at what people are spending time
Yeah.
on or what they play for, and,
Now, how do we actually know that people showed up at 8 and left at 4?
well, at the moment,
It would be the Public Works Manager,
Yeah.
sorry, and it would be myself and Peter seeing staff time, because that is one of the things we do check is, sick time and making sure, I mean, there's corrections that Haley does that are just, it's not done deliberately, but, we do really scrutinize the timesheets and the sick time and make sure people record their stats correctly and their vacation time, because that's how all that information is captured, the sick time, the vacation.
Okay.
And then what we have left is fire, and all fire. So comment last year about getting some control over the fire department bank account, which was done. And only one thing to complain about this year, and that was the way the burn building purchase was, you call it purchase or build, or whatever you call it, handled, which we didn't think was the most appropriate. And I think the management comments at the bottom of that point are pretty good, mentioning that the purchasing policy guidelines have been changed, and this happened to occur before that happened.
Bill, so you're talking about point 5 there on page
Oh.
24?
Yeah, so point 5, that was a point from last year,
Okay.
where we wanted more control over the...
Oh, prior year
Yeah,
recommendations.
yeah,
Okay,
we thought,
good.
sorry, we thought the village should take control of the fire department bank. It did, so that's now dealt with. And then page 25 is our one new point from this year. And this just happened to be fire related as well, where we didn't like we didn't think there was appropriate approvals in advance for the spend on the burn building. And what I was saying was that I think the management comments in italics there at the bottom after that page are good and really tell you what happened there. Purchasing policies being updated, this occurred before that update. So this sort of expenditure without approval could not happen again.
So are there any recommendations for 2015 for the fire department, or have they all been addressed?
Well, so this was a 2015 recommendation.
Or 2016?
Sorry, this came out of 2015 for 2016, but I think it's already been addressed because you're updating your purchasing policy, so that update will address this issue.
Okay. I think we're updating the purchasing policy, and now that we have laptops in the computer, we're going to insist on POs. But then separately from that, the burn building kind of almost reinforced point 5, the validity of, not that we always knew it was valid, but because the purchases happened in February, and this really was a point that came out in March, April during the audit, it had already occurred. And we didn't catch it until we went to implement this, and then that's when I discovered the unauthorized, unbudgeted purchases. So by the time this point came out, it had already been resolved by 5, but then we're also taking BDO's recommendation that we have POs. And that was one of the reasons we had the laptop, and it's the POs from the fire department that we need. And that will be, it will do that in 2016.
That will ease the AP situation as well, right? Because the account will already be decided. So you just match the PO to the invoice when it comes in, and you already know who's for and what the budget is. Yeah. So in a way, that's
It's netted control, so that when you sign the checks,
it's more
you'll
a
see there's
management thing that
PO.
I care about.
Yeah.
So Bill, is it fair to say that bar the one that's already been taken care of, next year's letter will have no comments?
Well, we can't have that.
No.
My staff can't leave until they find something.
Find something, but it'll be a new something.
Hopefully a small new something.
But I think that's a good takeaway, because we're going from a number of points last year to one.
It seems to me like these have all been put to bed satisfactorily. And the new one, you would want to say next year that it was taken care of.
Yes. So it's really quite positive, which of course makes us unhappy, because we like being nasty.
Justifying your
Yeah.
massive fees, yeah,
Yeah.
no, of course we understand that. Yeah.
It's the commission the staff get on the management points, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's well understood by council, and congratulations, both of you. I think it's a testament to your tenacity and thoroughness. So, that's good, right?
I think it's all good.
Did you have some questions on the fire department?
Well, I did. I don't know if
Fund
it's
and-
appropriate juncture to raise them now, Pam. Should I?
I think so.
So some time ago, we approved the resolution to run the fire department as a fund, much as we do water and sewer today. The rationale behind that was twofold. One was political. It was to be able to demonstrate to the village that fire was being managed. The idea was that ultimately it would become self-sustaining. Why? Because the evolution of a volunteer fire department in a small community like this is fraught as the management of the fire department moves on. And in our particular case, the chief has been in the seat for 20 years. He's ready to go. He's sticking around in order to keep things going, but it's important for us to be able to understand exactly what fire and rescue costs. Now, and that's why I asked the question some time ago about protective services. I don't like that term, because what I would like to see, call it, is public safety, and I would like to include policing costs. Now, I know that's a separate thing that we pay the province and the police to sort of happen occasionally. We see them about 5 times a month, usually on the highway. What I would really like to do is include policing costs, which is a cost paid by our taxpayers, in our statements. It's in and out, yes, I understand that. But it's what it costs to provide public safety in this place. Fire, specifically, because it's a volunteer department, much utility, just like water and just like sewer, I wanted to see it as its own fund, not simply for the cost center, with the fully allocated costs of the building that they use. And I've never seen a balance sheet for the fire department. I know they have 2 fire appliances that I think, if you were to buy them new today, would cost $1 million each. Do you think it's a good idea to show, not only as a cost center, as we see at these ones at the back, but to run fire as a fund, like water and sewer?
I guess I'm not clear what you would, so easily in the funds of the segments in the back we were looking at, easily we can have a fire
Well,
segment.
so far, that's just the $95,000 for compensation. It's the only piece of this in the back. So I guess if you had the chief, a new chief, for another 100.
What I'm looking to do is to treat fire. I think this is what I'm actually looking for advice more than anything. Do we need to treat fire as a utility that is required to be self-sustaining, as we currently do for water and sewer? Or, I guess the flip side of that question is, why do we maintain a separate water and sewer fund? Especially as we've been borrowing from the general fund for the longest time to pay them. Now we've set it up in such a way now that we kind of have made water self-sustaining. Sewer has something of a surplus, which we're going to start spending on sewer stuff.
So the water and sewer, I think that I think the fund accounting is sort of an historical artifact. And water and sewer, if you went back maybe 40 years or 30 years, there was a requirement for them to be entirely self-sustaining. So if you ever wanted to get any money from general fund into water or vice versa, you had to get minister approval. It was a big step. Some time ago, I don't know, 30 years ago-ish, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs backed off on that and said, well, we kind of like them to be sort of self-sufficient, but they don't really have to be.
You can do that in your budgeting. They don't need to be a legally separate fund, do they?
True, true. And then also at that time, computers weren't as good, so the idea of a cost center didn't really work. So there was literally separate books. At one time, there were separate bank accounts for each fund because the technology wasn't there to do it any differently. So those funds are kind of historical artifacts. There are some local governments that have totally done away with them, except for that they have to do them on their the forms they have to submit to the government. They have to sort of show water and sewer numbers, but they get that just from their cost centers. They can write a report that pulls them out. So personally, I think it's an historical artifact. I think this segment disclosure is just as good, and with technology, you can slice and dice that however you want.
To me, this is all I look at. This is the management accounts. I look at the balance sheet too, of course. But really, what I need to look at is the balance sheet notes to understand how much cash we have available to us in reserve.
And if you were to if you were to pass a council motion that said fire should be self-sustaining, I just wonder if that paints you into a corner a bit. Like maybe it works now, but you have to buy a fire truck. Maybe it doesn't work. I don't know. I just worry about tying your hands too much.
Yeah. So funds that are held in monies that are held in a fund can only be spent on that fund. In theory, although, correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, we've been borrowing from the general fund for a very long time.
Yeah, it's not legal. 30 years ago,
You would not be able
stuck
to.
in that fund. Now there's no. Municipal Affairs still says they'd like you to use it for that purpose, but there's no legal strings to it.
So is the larger question, should we do away with our water and sewer fund? Or does it not really make a difference? We certainly have written the bylaw, that sets up the parcel tax. I think the parcel tax is designated for the sewer fund. We have no water parcel tax anymore. Would it be easier to drop the funds?
We're required to have the parcel tax, and we still have to have a bylaw for the parcel tax, and we'd still have to have a bylaw for our sewer rates and our...
But does it address the fact that where it must go, or does it just say raise funds? Or does it say it is required to go into the sewer fund?
Well, I think it would have to, just in the nature, there may not be the true legal requirement, but, if I'm paying as a taxpayer, if I'm paying a sewer parcel tax or sewer utility rates, I want to think it's going to sewer.
Yeah, but we do that
And
on an
water.
accounting basis, not as a fund. So I guess, Bill, the short question is, do we really need water and sewer fund? And if we do, or because there's no benefit to killing them, do we need a fire department fund?
Well, so water and sewer are already there. Could you get rid of them? Yes, because you could still create them from the segment information and from other cost center reports. So you could still do that. There are things, and this is an issue that Lions Bay had previously. If there's certain monies you get that have to be used for that particular project. So if you borrow money for a water project, it can only be used for a water project. So there's still some of those strings there. You can manage that without an actual separate fund now, but they're already there, so I don't know if I'd collapse them. But in terms of adding another fund, I don't know if I see the value of painting yourself in the corner when you don't need to. When we can get all that information, slice and dice the way we want.
Yeah, the only impetus that I'm seeing now would be a political one. For example, we raised funding, provincial funding or sponsored funding to buy a new fire truck, and we would be able to say that we had a separate fund, that fire was self-sustaining in Lions Bay. Okay, so from an audit / accounting perspective, there's no benefit whatsoever to have a fire fund as such. We can just report it as a cost center, including with its own balance sheet and everything.
Yeah, in my opinion, I'm not,
Yeah, with the
everybody's opinion is valid.
Sorry, with the balance sheet, I mean, you could see the bigger thing, tangible capital assets, we can say which ones belong to fire and the
Yeah.
depreciation. I mean, we only have one cash account, accounts receivable, I wouldn't want to be splitting them on the balance sheet.
Well, yeah, I'd like to know of that $200,000 or $300,000 in AP, how much, or maybe fire, or anybody for that matter. That seems to me to be quite a lot of outstanding invoices. It'd be nice to know what's causing that kind of overhang. So, yeah, I don't know what our accounting system can and can't do. Not much, it seems. But I sure would like to see. Do we have balance sheets for water and
No.
sewer?
I mean, again, I've gone back and broken up the surplus reserves, and when I report that to you, I show it in the different segments. The tangible capital assets can be split.
Easily enough.
To me,
yeah.
personally, I think they're the most meaningful components of the balance sheet to show segmented.
What typically happens in municipalities that have a lot of funds is they don't break the things out between the funds, so they just have this one big line item called due to general fund. So it doesn't really give you any other, so instead of allocating all the payables between all the funds, it just says due to general fund, so it doesn't really, there's not a lot of good information there.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately what I'm trying to understand is what is our fire department, how's it set up today, and what is it going to need to look like in the future? You know, I don't even know how amortized the fire appliances are, the trucks.
We can give you that information.
Yeah.
So the number here in the combined statement of operation, that doesn't show us how much the fire department is costing us.
No, it's just the operating expenses, and we have an allocated depreciation to it on the assets, and that's what I'm saying, we can give you all that information.
And nor have we allocated use of asset, like the building itself.
No, the CLAP building expenses aren't allocated there as well. Again, it's that fine line between, I mean, we could allocate staff time, but it all comes from the same bucket, and a lot of municipalities, well, I shouldn't say a lot, the ones that I work for have been getting away from that actually. The time spent trying to allocate staff time to the different departments, at the end of the day, it doesn't affect the tax rate at all. I mean, sometimes it's good information, sometimes it's not.
Well, I'm thinking of a much higher level discussion than that. I'm thinking of, can we afford a fire department? I'd like to know what it costs us.
So I think it's
Which means
definitely worth allocating the CLAP building expenses to it,
And it would only be that one, although there may be some other aspects of our operations that would be nice to have cost center breakup, including balance sheet. Because right now I'm shooting in the dark to understand what a fire department really entails.
So would you need a cost and whatever breakdown for public works as well then?
Well, that we have.
So that one, you have the public works building in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't think you allocate.
No, amortization is not allocated
Yeah.
there. All of the general amortization is literally.
It's all in the
allocated
general
to
fund, yeah.
but in terms of the expense of the public works building, I mean,
That's in transportation.
yeah, that is in transportation.
The expense of it, yeah.
Yeah, so that,
But not the amortization expense.
no, and that's what, when I replied to Mayor Burr's email last week, I mean, we can definitely do more information to get more detailed, segmented information without going to the extreme of setting up a separate fund.
Yeah, okay, well then I'd be prepared to, on that basis, you understand, my motivation for this request is political. I'm thinking 20 years. Where are we actually going to be and what's it going to look like? But if we can do it cost center wise, great.
Probably easier,
Yeah, and easier. In
And
which
I-
case, do we have to rescind that resolution, Peter?
Yeah, I think that would probably be a good idea.
Yeah. Okay.
And then just in terms of the balance sheet, maybe Bill can speak to this. I don't know that I would want to go to the extreme of doing a water, sewer, fire, public works balance sheet, but I could disclose, the key components of the balance sheet and how they're split.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately what I'm looking for is a management
Yeah,
accounts.
yeah.
I wouldn't, cost centers. If we were to kill the fire department, no, bad example. If we were to kill our water component by bringing in a pipeline, what would that look like? We'd have to, how much assets would we now abandon as worthless?
So that's just addressing the assets. I mean, the split on accounts payable would give you no benefit to that decision,
Yeah,
so.
it's only 300K. I mean, yeah, big deal. You could guess it.
Right.
Guess it by revenue or something. Okay.
So, just on this issue then, so I think Bill and Pam and you and I and Helen have kind of gone through this then. So relative, specific to the fire department, basically Pam's offering to do shadow accounting.
I don't know if I'd use that term.
Well, that's-
Segmented, detailed
So,
segment,
yeah,
more
yeah.
detailed segmented
Detailed.
reporting.
Detailed in-house accounting versus seeing it on the.
It's what I keep harping on about management accounting. I'm not really interested in the reporting requirements. I mean, that's after the fact. To me, what I'm looking for is the ability to build a budget based on meaningful results.
Although I do think there's some value to reporting, and I think we should add a segment in Schedule 1 next year that has fire, and Schedule 3, which is tangible capital assets, at the category for fire equipment. And I think you're right, the budget part is more important, but it's, you know, these documents live forever. It's always good to be able to go back
Don't get me
40
wrong,
years,
yeah,
40
right.
years and see what was going on.
This is the final picture in terms of management accounting in order to understand what you might be able to tweak going forward. So one final thing, what do you think about putting police in
As an in and out.
to reflect what this village is actually paying
It
for
actually,
public safety?
it actually is in a note quite well.
Yeah, notes. Yeah, note.
Well, note.
Show me the note.
The segmented is also a note. Note 6, I don't know, I'm guessing 6, tell me it's 6.
Probably somewhere around there.
Contingent
5.
liabilities, fine.
Note 5. It, I think, shows quite nicely, and actually we pulled out the RCMP. We used to say school taxes / RCMP, and this year we pulled out the RCMP. So I think it very clearly shows what the actual cost was of those flow-throughs. And we can highlight in the annual report. the graph?
Yeah, but that's only taxation.
That's the only cost.
Right, so the cost is a tax.
Well, I mean, our budget's 3.1, so there's 900,000 missing there. But I know where it comes from grants and whatnot.
You're saying for police stuff, we clearly show what the police cost, the Village of Lions Bay in this note.
Yeah, I'm looking for a master P&L that really shows what it costs to run this place. Not with all the revenue streams, which are, of course, not only taxation. I keep coming back to the term management accounts. To really understand what does it take to run this machine.
It literally is a flow-through. I mean, there's cost to the villagers.
Well, can we drop it all together?
The village of the RCMP, but there's no cost to us other than the paperwork Haley has to do to remit it.
No cost to
collect it
us.
and remit it.
No cost to us. It costs $200 per taxpayer.
And that's what I'm saying, there's a taxpayer account, but in terms of us doing our job to run the village, there's not the cost like there is here to run the fire department and run public
Okay, let's
works.
drop police then.
We-
That's great. We just saved ourselves 200K.
And
When I say us, I mean the taxpayers. So
But
obviously,
I'm saying the only cost is what we bill we don't run the police department, so the only cost is the cost that we pay for the police, and I think we clearly indicate to the village what the
Did
RCMP
Bill
cost
answer
us.
your question? No?
no, he didn't. Can we put police in our P&L?
Different than the way it is now.
That's not a P&L. That's a note.
What's on the income statement?
Well, I guess the only thing we would look for, so they're your statements, you can really do whatever you want. We would always recommend consistency, so if we're putting the police in, we'd say, let's put the school taxes in and the GBRD in.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I've been asking for.
Let's expand
Yeah.
the question then.
Okay.
I mean, it's,
Now, nobody else does that, which doesn't mean,
You don't
Can't
want to
be
be
different,
too
but-
radical, and if you really want to make comparables, you'd have to go back and do it into the midst of time. But really, what I'm trying to demonstrate to the village is what does it cost to run this machine, and we have to pay $700,000 a year to run our school. Okay, mainly we're funding the northern schools, but
well, the residents do. So,
Yeah, the
mean,
residents.
yeah, I don't know why you
that's
keep
the
saying we. I mean, we represent the residents, right?
Take
We
this-
represent the
take the
taxpayers.
victory
that
to-
pay
take
for
the
this.
victory
It's just
you've
a
got in
flow-through
hand
as
here,
opposed
Carl.
to what it costs us to run the public works. We actually run the public works. We run the fire
We run the
department.
police by contracting it out to the RCMP. That's how we supply police services. We supply ambulance services by contracting it
Let's
out.
get back to Bill on this one.
Okay, so I think I heard we could do it.
Yes,
We would be unusual in doing so.
Like the only one.
the only one,
The only
as
one.
far as I know,
I
the
think it would be
189, but
confusing.
that doesn't, there's no reason you can't, maybe you'll start a trend.
I think the most
I would like to
effective,
start a trend, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I think our most effective tool is the property tax. When the bill goes out, when they see the amount, they look to the brochure, and I think we do a really good job of showing what the true cost is there. You talk about it in your mayor's message, as opposed to essentially hiding it in the financial statements. And my vote would be no.
Hiding?
I have
This is hiding.
comment as well though. We would then almost look like we're responsible for it. So the policing in 2015 was 112,000. You haven't chosen to make it go up to 124,000, but it just did. So you're now kind of taking responsibility if you put it in yours. It's like, oh, we're now charging you this much for policing.
Yeah.
But we're
I take
not-
responsibility for the
But
whole
we didn't
thing.
make the decision. It was out of our
The
hands.
taxpayer doesn't care about that.
Which
All
is
they
why-
care about is who's
But
paying.
they do if you separate it and say your municipal taxes are this.
Okay, well,
this
that's a
is all
political
you have
decision
control.
that council
All right,
will
so
be
you
making.
got your
decision.
answer.
Yeah, I got my answer from Bill. Anything else?
No, that's it, thank you.
Thanks very much, Bill.
It's always good to have a lot of discussion, thank you.
You don't need a time to just talk to mayor and council on their own?
Yeah, if you don't mind, it's sort of a good practice to have a closed
Oh, yes.
session without staff for
Good idea.
3
Sure.
minutes. Yep.
So we need a resolution for, to close the meeting?
Yeah,
Peter?
just before I forget, and in case, can we have a resolution that, or a recommendation, I
Yeah, it's
guess
a
it would be,
recommendation.
that the resolution that the fire department set up as a separate fund be rescinded? And we'll just carry that to the meeting tonight.
Yeah,
Tonight.
yeah, so we need to vote on that. So recommendation as read, all in favour? Opposed? Carried? Seems silly that I have to say that little litany. Can't we just do a nod?
Actually, if I could just add one more thing. I just had wanted to go back to the management letter. I'm sorry, we sort of got off a bit.
You got distracted by my accounting heresy?
Yeah. I had wanted to, the point that was brought up this year about the unbudgeted expense, I do consider that, as the CFO, a very serious breach. I mean, that was a very large sum of money. I know we've addressed it previously. I've addressed, I brought it up in a separate report in a closed meeting, but I do want to make sure that doesn't happen again. I think we have the controls in place, but I will need council support if this does happen again. It's especially illegal to have an unauthorized expense, an unbudgeted expense, and I just want council's attention that I do consider this quite a serious breach.
No, I think we
that-
took that very seriously and treated it appropriately. I mean, I wouldn't call it forensic accounting that tracked it down, because it would have come out in the wash anyway. But I think you have our full support on that kind of thing. I suspect it should not happen again. I am, and I think the recommendation in the report finally was, my report to council was, we can chalk this one up to over casualness. And I suspect now, with processes that you're putting in place around purchasing, it won't happen again. Would you say that's right? Ron?
I would think that the council's viewpoint would be very draconian if this happened again.
Okay.
Yeah, not only will it, should it not be
And
one.
instant too.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can't have that kind of thing. You know, I keep pointing out that figure represents a 5% tax increase.
And I had a question for you, Bill.
For
Just in terms of
non-conforming structure.
approval of the financial statements, you had said,
Yeah,
just
that too.
so we clarify the steps, we approve the financial statements, and upon approval from council, then you do your steps after that.
Yes.
So would it be, I had it on the agenda, we're having a special meeting May 10th to approve them, but I'm wondering if I brought it forward on table tonight to approve them, given the deadline of May 15th for the LGDE. I think that would be beneficial maybe for both of us.
Yes,
Or
yeah, that would,
You think tonight would be? So that's my mistake. I thought May 10th would be okay, but just from
May
the
10th would
steps
work
that,
too.
it would work, but it would be
but,
tight, because that's a
Let's do it.
Tuesday and by Friday. So,
Is that the special meeting you asked for? Is
no, the
that
special meeting is for adoption of the
5-year plan?
the 5-year plan
Yeah, okay.
and the tax rate bylaw, and it was approval of the financial statements, but I could bring that forward tonight.
Fine.
If if council were comfortable that we've reviewed these enough, that they're,
We've, I think, reviewed them to death. One minor semantical issue. Mayor is a member of council. Semantically, this should be report to the mayor and councillors, or report to the council. Do you care that much?
No?
I don't like to
Never-
see, the mayor is nobody special. I mean, I would prefer to see it
Just council,
report to council.
sure.
Shifting back to the fire department, for their infrequent but frequent enough fundraising events where they come up with a bag of cash. Is the idea that they just hand it over to you, or like people want receipts and stuff like that? This is all kind of pioneering a little bit.
It is. It's something that I will be looking at. I've spoken
Okay,
to the
so-
fire chief.
As in tax receipts, you mean?
With the tax receipts, I think we just have to be absolutely unequivocally clear, even though we've tried to be every year, that we cannot issue tax
Well, it's-
receipts for items donated for the auction, and that
Right.
has to
Well,
be made clear to
I'm with you on
everyone.
this one, because I can see in the spirit of the alcohol-imbued atmosphere that, you know, I do this, and so you become the bad guy because tax receipts and all the rest of the stuff.
But in terms of, the cash coming in, that is something that
Okay.
we will
Got it? Fine.
be looking at.
Yeah,
for
we
the
do need to
fire-
get a
it's
policy
one-day
around.
firefighter day they have. And the biggest issue in the past has been promised tax receipts that we couldn't. I
Okay.
think you've been involved in
So
that as well.
you're
that we
just gonna be
can't.
that bad guy from day one?
Yeah. So we'd like to just completely put it to bed this year.
Okay.
and-
Can I just understand why that is?
We have to determine a value. To be fair, that was probably a little too black and white. If they donate something and they have proof of the fair market value, like if it were tickets to the Canucks game and there was a face
Yeah.
value, that's very clear. Or
But
if they
it was
did
an
have
auction,
fair
they got a
market
triple bid
value,
on something, that's not a
It's
tax.
use of your cabin on some island.
or it tends to be
Or
people
art-
cleaning out,
artwork or something.
cleaning out their garage and having some artwork and then putting it in and then saying, it's worth $500 and I'd like a tax receipt for $500.
Well, that's the guy that
Yeah.
donated to the Art Institute of BC. He got a tax receipt for 35 million.
As long as I
It
have
was
a
flagged,
fair
however.
market value certificate, then
And the difference is now municipalities, in the last 2 years, municipalities can now actually be kicked out of the ability to
yes.
issue receipts, whereas in the past, CRA couldn't do anything. You could issue all the false receipts you wanted. They couldn't do anything. Now they can stop that ability.
It's the same rules as if we were a charitable organization, and it would be problematic for us if we lost that
It
designation.
would be, and it would be a little embarrassing for the community too.
No, that's why I say we need to understand what the rules are and then apply them consistently. It's that simple.
Peter, does staff take a break here for a few minutes while we talk to Bill?
Yep,
or-
yep.
Okay.
Do we need a resolution to close? This being a public
That's
meeting?
really where you're
Yeah.
just taking a break for a minute.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to close the meeting to the public and to staff. Thank you. And second, all in favour, opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Come and thunder on the wall. Bring out your dead. Okay, it's 16:56 and we've returned from closed meeting and recess. Nothing to report out. Nothing to report out? No. And we're to resume the regular meeting agenda, and we're at 8B Parking Plan Committee presentation on table. Helen.
Okay, so, well, we finally at long last have a parking plan. There's your copy. And it seems the only person, well, Pam hasn't seen it, but the only person really here that hasn't seen a version of it would be Ron.
I came an hour early so I could read it, so.
So, I'm just wondering, how should we go through this process? Do I,
Well, it's certainly on table. This is the first I've seen it, right?
this final version, so you've seen many versions of it, I've emailed copies of it.
I've only ever seen up to the end of this conclusion and accept resolution. And then, I haven't seen any of these appendices.
I think, I mean, if Carl hasn't seen it, I mean, I'm interested in it and I can chat about it for a bit, but I mean, not having Fred and Jim here is a
I know.
negative.
Yeah, well, we can't necessarily
Okay.
So tell us what the recommendations are.
So
What's
if-
supposed to happen?
So if we just, then I suppose if we just jump to what we're calling programs, because the recommendation would be to approve this plan.
Mhm.
So, and what we hope to achieve through this plan is the following, is to address
Are you doing page 15?
a series of parking challenges, which you would find, no, on page 7. So those are sort of a snapshot of a list of what the residents consider the 5 top challenges. And then they were asked in their survey what they would think would be good solutions. So then we took what they conveyed out to us, as well as our own findings, and we developed a set of programs that would address those issues. So if you go to page 9, we've listed out 13 programs. And each of these programs, in one way or another, would address our overall strategic direction, which is listed just above page 9, which is number 1, that we have a consistent definition of each parking zone in the village. That is, we would take a big map, a map of the village, and we would go through every single street and identify the type of that street. So for example, that is a resident-only street, or that is a visitor or open to all street. Number 2, to improve communication to residents and public. Number 3, to rebalance parking allocations for visitors, because that came up as a big concern during the results from the survey. Number 4, clear and consistent effective signage. That's and then number 5, fair and consistent enforcement. So then these list of programs that we've outlined follows the strategies that we've listed above. And actually, most of these programs we can in fact do this summer, and we've discussed it with Peter, and he's given some feedback and advice and direction, and I think he's confident that we can make some of it happen this summer. Yes.
Yeah, I think there was a few things that need to be ironed out quickly, such as types of permits and ordering, because they have to be ordered ASAP.
Yeah. So if we go through the program, for example, the first one, which would be the main crux of this parking plan, and that is identifying the street types, because from there, then you would address the signage problems and anything that might come up. But that would take longer to do, and that would need a budget behind it, especially with regards to signage. The second one is with regards to the current residential permit. This thing. The second program addresses that, and that is that there's been concern that there's misuse over this little sticker, that people sell it or they pass it to friends. So we're suggesting what we should do is to put a mechanism in place where we're able to put an associated license plate against it.
Yeah, but our investigation on that front wasn't coming up with a quick fix for that issue.
Was there any fix?
Well, the suggestion, one of the issues that was identified by staff was that these things, just because of the type of material and the color and so forth, a big complaint that we get all the time is that the color bleeds onto people's windshields, and they hate it.
So from that decal in itself, people are
green car.
complaining about.
Yeah. So the suggestion was that perhaps we should try going to a clear reverse print sticker, kind of like what you get when you go to the service station and they say your next service is sit in the top corner of your thing. So it's not impeding your vision at all. But again, putting any kind of a license plate or a house address would be problematic at this stage of the game. And maybe, you know, maybe that's something that we can solve down the road. I mean, there's lots of stuff to be done down the road, like designation of street types and all that stuff, but I think going forward this year, that would be a suggestion that might improve the experience, the user experience for this year. If I don't know, subject to what everyone thinks about that issue.
So, would it cost the same?
No, Haley, did we,
Same cost.
same price? Okay.
So would that then, does that need a council resolution?
Not necessarily. I think you know, it's more or less an operational matter, but because parking is so sensitive, we kind of don't really want to jump into things without knowing that there's you know, council's on board, and that you know, you're leading us in the
Yeah, well,
we're all on the same
board with
page
any-
kind of thing.
We're
you
on
know?
board with any program that would increase resident, I don't know, or decrease their complaint, or I don't know how you would say that. So certainly if the bleeding was an issue and we can address that without any additional cost, then I would say yes. And how, could we change the design? For example, even the wording, so that it's consistent with the signs we have up now. As we've identified, changing it from residential permit to resident parking permit.
I don't see why not.
Because I think currently the signs on the streets say, they say resident permit, resident parking permit.
Yeah.
Well, they say lots of things.
Yeah.
There's
In general,
about
they
7 or 8 different terminologies.
In general, they seem to say resident parking permit, right?
Some say residents only, some say resident parking, some say resident parking only.
But none say residential.
None say residential.
So that's
no,
why
no,
this,
that's just
so,
grammatically incorrect.
yes, so that's why. Okay,
But it doesn't say anything about resident decal required.
yeah, I noticed that as well.
The signs all say resident parking or residents only.
But it should say resident
Permit.
permit.
I say resident permits on
Okay,
So, I mean, okay,
let's just, well, should I keep on going through the programs?
Yeah, I think that's probably not a bad idea,
Okay.
and then we can talk about implementation ability or issues.
Okay, so the number 3, guest pass, this one's simple, just to change the current, there's a copy of it, $1 a day guest pass, which is Appendix E. And currently, you're able to purchase it online, but you said that system is disabled?
No, I said it could be disabled very quickly, just waiting for,
So we're
Direction.
recommending that we disable it so that, to prevent people from, non-residents from buying these passes. And then changing the wording to daily parking permit. Because we're trying to get everything consistent, all the wordings.
so
Well,
it
the
wouldn't say guest pass, it would say daily parking permit.
Well, yeah,
just not consistent with the change, with the wording of the resident decal.
resident, daily parking permit.
Well, I mean, the
I think the decal is almost a separate to all the other passes. If you look at all the passes, so in Appendix E, there's copies of all the various passes. So I think the decal it seems to be a different animal.
well, in this iteration of the recommendation, yes, it is. I mean, just so that, never mind, go ahead.
Okay. Right. And then we also recommend that perhaps residents can purchase these 1-day guest pass in a book of 20. This is to address issues that if the office is closed and they suddenly need a guest pass, they won't run into problems purchasing it.
But the guest passes are specific to a certain day, right?
Yeah, so they'll have to fill it, once they get the pass,
Mhm.
they can use it whenever, but so for that day, they would fill out the date. I think
So it's not valid unless it has a date written
Yes.
on it.
Yeah, so when it's put on your dashboard,
Mhm.
you would have a date on it.
Right.
I think currently does it have that?
I think
Ye-
when we print
yes.
them from the office here, yeah, it has a date, and probably the online version does too. Yeah.
So then people would just fill out the date, right?
And then if they didn't, they could get a ticket.
Yeah.
Like the idea is if they didn't put the date in.
Number 4,
Sorry, just before you leave that one, it says only required in permit zones and not at the Lions Bay Beach parking lot. So could a person use a one-day daily parking permit in the Lions Bay Beach
no,
parking lot?
actually, it should be written that you cannot
You cannot.
use it. You can?
Yes. I don't recall that actually
I thought,
being there because
So
I
you-
don't want to start disagreeing with it, but, well, for instance, we had we had guest passes for when the guests for the House and Community Forum or when people come to my house. I mean, it's a place for people to park as a guest.
so then
I
the
don't
guests,
recall us
I thought
deciding that.
that when we divvied up the visitor to free, yeah, we said they couldn't use the dollar one there? Or that the dollar one could only be used
Well, it says
where-
it's only only required in a permit zone. So in the Lions Bay Beach parking lot, you would have a few stalls that are visitor that are free, so you wouldn't need it there.
Yeah.
But the rest of the parking lot is resident permit parking. So you would need to have one of these passes if you were parking in that part of the parking lot, I presume.
Was that?
Was that-
Okay, so
We're
how
saying here
would
it said
that,
that would only be 25%, so they could only use it in that 25% of the Lions Bay Beach Park that was allocated
Yeah,
for
but-
residents.
Well, when the pay parking, if and when the pay parking is implemented, that was their suggestion that it be allocated that way. In the meantime, there's still a need to update the guest passes, so until such time as the pay parking allocation's in place. But wherever there's a resident
Okay,
permit
so
required, the
scratch-
guest pass would work.
so scratch that about the Lions Bay Beach Park. Towing policy, number 4, review, update, and implement current towing policy. So we discovered there is a towing policy in place in the village, and so we're recommending that it be reviewed, updated, and implemented by staff.
So I have had a look at a couple of iterations of the towing policy, and there are some questions that are raised with respect to towing policy, such as does council want to take a warn ticket tow kind of policy? So before towing, somebody be warned, and then after the warning, then they'd be ticketed and then they'd be towed? Or is it simply if they're parked illegally and they get a ticket, then they're towed? Or do you want to save towing as a penalty which is only implemented in the most dire of circumstances, namely safety? So if it's blocking a fire lane or a fire hydrant or access to somebody's property or something like that. So there's a few things that are sort of questions that we will need to know.
And who will give you the answer, the council or the committee?
Well, a policy is something that council should wrap their minds around and adopt or not. But we have a little bit of time in terms of working on the policy. Not much, but a little bit. I don't think we're going to get through that today, but
So I don't think we have to do this right away. It's when you can fit it into, maybe we can put that as, yeah.
we're going to need to have policies with respect to towing, and what's our policy on enforcement. Are we gonna give warning tickets? Are we gonna just outright give them tickets under the Violent Notice Enforcement Act?
And so once again, that would be a council decision and not the committee's recommendation, or would the committee provide a recommendation and bring it to council specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think towing was something that you guys had talked about at various meetings along the way, but I don't know what sort of, whether there was any sort of final recommendations as to what that should look like. But I know we talked about it a little bit last meeting, but
Well, we did go through, as the committee did go through it, and I think in
Mhm.
general there was a consensus that we thought the towing policy was good. We
Mhm.
just wanted to see that it's followed.
okay, well, there's some things
Was
in it
that,
that
was
are.
that?
Yeah, the last note I had was, under the strategy was to ensure that we have this comment in there was that to avoid undue hardship
Mhm.
of people, and that it was intended mainly for safety, and that, but in certain circumstances where there were after hours parking, when
Mhm.
parking lots closed, say in Calvin Grove particularly, that's another instance, because that
Right.
actually falls under safety.
But we did go through it, and we did
We
think
did,
it was a good
yeah.
policy in
Right.
general.
Yeah.
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 So
I
would
think
that be
the
enough
most
direction?
Recent, like the 2009 update on the towing policy would be worthwhile to bring that back to council, I would suggest, just
Mhm.
because, but it was reviewed at a time with the same kind of intention and objectives at that time, which was to not have this unreasonable hardship, and yet you have it as a deterrent and as enforcement, where people are clearly abusing situations, so.
Is that enough to,
There'd need to be a signage update entirely, that's a budget item. Yeah, I don't believe that we're able to make too many decisions based on this because it's a little incomplete still. I mean, I think what council needs is a recommendation from the committee as to what needs to be done. If the committee's recommendation is the current towing policy is great, well then that's the recommendation. Or it needs the following changes, that's the recommendation. I mean, it has to be done in concert with a parking plan. Whether we actually need towing at all, as Peter correctly says, or we want to apply it in what sort of circumstances. It could be that the parking plan's recommendation is to adopt the towing policy as
So-
is.
So the way that, if again, the committee was, first of all, we had to make sure that staff knew there was a towing policy and that they actually found the towing policy, for staff to review it, to come back, and that's actually what's happening right here. So Peter has actually read it now and is preparing to come back, so I think that's kind of the step that the committee would be at, is to hear what the thoughts are.
But now, correct me if I'm wrong, have we not disbanded the committee?
no? Who disbanded it?
Council.
Did you, Ron?
Or
Did we not?
any resolution doing that? I think I don't know if I have the terms of reference handy, but I think it goes through to the end of May or June, I forget which.
I think it was to deliver a parking plan.
I think there was a date in there.
Well, the original date was a
March
late date,
15th?
and then we moved it forward in order to give time for
I think
implementation.
first it was May 15th, and then it became March 15th. So we're behind on one, ahead on the other.
Well, I certainly remember it being changed to March, so March 15th it is. But
Nonetheless, how about if I finish this?
well, I'm just conscious of time. That's where I'm.
Okay, so meter parking, the committee agreed to convert the Lions Bay Beach parking lot to meter parking, but we still need to do further analysis on how this should be done, and this is not something we can do by this summer. And what we can do is point 6 with regards to the Lions Bay Beach parking lot is to work with the marina to implement an improvement to the current parking pass sales system. I think to put a guideline in place, because we were asking for one, and it seems like there was something dated 1967, and since then it's been moving all over the place, so there's been a lot of confusion. So Ruth has offered to work with Ken and put together a system.
Would that not be staff?
Well, hopefully, ideally it is staff. I'm just acting as a way to help bridge that, be a liaison. So I've received the documents, I'm passing them on. Then there's, mainly it was to try and to make sure that the marina's procedures and direction for how they're selling and communicating to people with parking is clear, and that the pass is clear and enforceable. Also that the sales are tracked easier, and that, yeah, and then to increase the cost, because it hasn't been changed for many, many years, and it's a very, very simple, easy way for the village to earn revenue off of small space that doesn't cost very much money, so if anything. It's free, directly, straight into revenue.
So we're recommending
And
this
it'll
summer.
be a 50% increase, which would be around $6,000 or $7,000 of straight revenue. And there's very little changes that need to be done.
And was Ken on board with that? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's his suggestion to take it to 15. And I think it's a way that if you're going to go to pay parking, then you can test out how much people are willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
He does absorb all the costs. He does all the printing. He does the credit card transactions. So there is cost that he's incurring. The village is incurring nothing.
How do you enforce the 3-hour limit?
Much like at Calvin Grove, when the bylaw officer is on, then he can chalk or take a photo, or.
But the bylaw officer's only on 3 days a week.
And that's when, if you look at as I did, I went to data entered all of the sales for the last 2 years, and the parking occurs on the weekends. And Friday, people will come and park in those free spots, and they'll be there till Sunday. Right now, they're getting 3 days of no cost at all. So if you change that to 3 hour, which has been a recommendation for a very long time.
So these are the marina patrons
Right.
that we're talking
They're-
about to enjoy the 3-day holiday.
Mhm.
So
if they get there first, yeah.
So if they get there first, but as of now, it's 3-hour max, so we're gonna have turnover there that we never had before.
The intention of the 5 visitors spots was
Mhm.
for people who just wanted to come to the beach for a short period of time
Mhm.
as a visitor. So by having a 3-hour limit, as we do in Kelvin Grove, it kind of enforces the intentions.
And I think it would also address some concerns where people would thought that the marina they were selling tickets or passes that can be used outside the parking lot, and we're ensuring that that's certainly not the case.
Yeah, and so it hasn't, the parking pass, the copy that I got makes it clear that the marina's only selling for the Lions Bay parking lot. I don't think many sales are happening directly from the village office for the 10-day, but those ones do not have the same restriction. So there's an inconsistency there.
And is there a desire to change that inconsistency so that the passes we sell are only valid for the parking lot?
Yeah, it may not show
Or-
up in here, but because we were led to believe there weren't any sales from the.
There aren't. We don't sell any.
And is that a
Of these?
rule because that's the rule that we don't
No,
sell?
it's because
or-
nobody comes and asks for them.
Right, but say somebody, yeah, so if someone would,
Absolutely, we would sell them.
yeah, and so in that case, then it should probably be consistent.
It should be the same, because I think this is the same one that Ken is selling.
So this doesn't say Lions Bay Beach parking lot.
Neither does Ken's.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, he attaches a separate piece of
Yeah.
paper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hens does.
yeah.
He attaches, yeah, but he sells this, right?
Correct, and he puts a little slip on it saying you can only park in the same lot, whereas if we were gonna sell that,
Yeah.
you actually would then, as a hiker, be able to go and park up at sunset for the day, in theory. As it happens, nobody comes in because we're closed when people are hiking, but in theory, you could do that.
Okay, well, we didn't even know that the office was selling these.
Well, we're not. We have the capability to, literally nobody comes and asks for them.
Okay.
It's a Lions Bay parking pass. Ken is the agent. He keeps 50% commission for me, that's his agency fee, but it's Lions Bay parking,
Okay.
not Ken's possible.
Okay, 7, Sunset Drive, eliminate resident permit parking only at Sunset entrance to the trailhead. That's to increase visitor parking. 8, lower Calvin Grove parking lots, improve enforcement, increase visitors parking spot by 2. And then there was agreement that staff would look at the feasibility of having a barrier to close the parking lot after hours, and also to see if the towing company would come in after hours. I think you
Yeah,
said you would.
I think the barrier was, we talked about that a little bit, but that's presented issues because you'd have to have somebody opening it the next morning, and if it was from a Sunday to a Monday, there might not be anybody to open it, and the barrier is kind of a problematic thing. Automatic towing after hours, whether it's 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock or what have you, to allow a little leeway or whatever, was something that was a possibility if that was the direction that
Yeah.
we're going to
So
go.
this is to address the concern of people staying late in the parking lot.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and I think that when that was brought up at the last committee meeting, that seemed to be the normally realistic.
Right, I think
way
signage
of
would have to be
dealing with
absolutely
it.
crystal clear that, hey, if you're in this lot after hours, and I think the way the towing policy reads, it wouldn't matter if you have a resident permit or not. Although, there's a note in here that, there's a reference that doesn't make sense, but something about warning to a resident first if it's practicable. But that would be probably problematic.
So I'm also, going back to the barrier, if it just is not feasible, would you be able to write a letter to, or say, can we put this to bed? Because it keeps on rearing its
I
head.
kind of thought the barrier was put to bed at the last meeting.
No,
Does somebody not
No.
think it's put to bed?
I wasn't sure we were looking into it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
well,
the looking
no,
into
I
part
recall
was-
that was put to bed, as long as
Yeah.
there was gonna be a solution,
Oh.
which is the towing.
Right.
Okay. Brunswick Beach, to address the continued or the increasing problem with people parking. Actually, we said that we probably won't be able to do anything about it this year. Except there was a recommendation that we put up a sign at the entrance to say something along the line, and this was Peter's suggestion, resident permit parking only. Is it?
I take it there's no signage until you get down into the streets, right?
So we're
So if you have
thinking
something at
one-
the entrance
Yeah.
to Brunswick Beach, maybe that would help, I don't know.
Yeah, we had a note here, I don't know where it's gone to, but that you were in the process of talking to highways about.
Yeah, and I got back, so
Oh, sorry,
I
don't
sought
know.
some casual legal advice under the program, because it was gonna pertain to a number of different things. Parking on the highway by Brunswick, parking on the cul-de-sac on Southview Place next to Vlad's, in the highway right away, and there was one other I can't think of offhand. So I wanted clarity on whether there is some way in which we can enforce our bylaws if they're not in conflict with provincial regulations. The answer I got back was not what I wanted to hear. There was one possible means by which we could, according to the lawyer, and that was via the Transportation Act. There's a garbage provision, and derelict vehicles can be defined as garbage. But given that, for that Southview location, it's down the embankment behind some trees, you don't see it from the highway. I'm sure the intent of that section is to have, it was only applicable for highways designated as scenic highways, which this highway I think is, but you wouldn't see that from the highway, so.
Yeah, it's not really the highway, it just happens to be Modi land.
Yeah, I don't, well, it's part of the right of way. So I'm not, I wrote back saying, well, thanks a lot, but I don't think this is gonna work for us. I'd be surprised if we didn't get challenged and lose on that if we tried to do it, so.
Could we not ask them to enforce our bylaws?
Yeah, well, that's the only thing you can do, and I understand that, my understanding is that we have asked in the past. Nikki said that to me at one point.
She never asked.
Uh,
That was my suggestion and it was rejected.
I thought that it had been asked.
Apparently not, when I asked.
Mm.
But anyway, that's not here nor
Anyway,
there.
so,
In terms of parking,
It can be asked if it hasn't already been, but that's our situation as it persists right now at Brunswick, is from time to time, as I understand it, we do ask them, and they come along and write some tickets maybe, but
The only time we've asked the MOT before in the past was in regards to Southview. We were asked if we were allowed to ticket on their land, and they did say yes to that instance. I don't know about the Brunswick pull-off, but I know that last year they actually did, for the first time, put up the towing signs. Now, I don't know if they've towed anyone yet. It also doesn't tell people where their vehicle's been towed, so I can't
Yeah,
imagine
it's-
they're actually going to tow anyone. I don't know.
they have not been able to give me any information on how much towing is taking place. I'm sure none has.
Yeah.
So number 10 speaks to communication, so we need to communicate and promote whatever parking changes we recommend. Number 11, overhaul signage, a phase replacement or removal of signage to conform to type once finalized. Number 12, improve enforcement. So that is improve enforcement, increase bylaw officer hours, training, management, and increase parking fines. So the suggestion, actually we've addressed the increasing bylaw officer hours. And then there was discussion about increasing the parking fine to,
yeah, I was
along
gonna
with best
review that.
practice. And finally, 13, for staff to go through all parking related policies, ensure that they are in line with this plan. So for example, the towing policy, and I think there is an extraordinary vehicle policy, contractor parking policy?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's part of the bylaw as well.
And then and the fees and bylaw policy, we'll probably need to do that.
There was a fair bit of discussion how the contractor parking permits are not being applied. And so that inconsistency of how our policies are applied and when this was an issue.
Yeah, I'm not up to speed on the contractor parking permits. Do we sell them?
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
Do we sell a lot of them?
When someone comes in and asks for a building permit, they have to fill out whether they're required to have parking, and if they do, then we sell them.
Yeah, so when residents are noticing that there's cars but no permits, then there needs to be a way that they're reporting that and enforcing
Need a
it.
bylaw.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay, and then page 15 is conclusion and next steps. So next step would be to receive feedback on recommendation from council and staff, and then prepare a communication plan, so should it be approved, a communication plan for sharing with the community. Then we would suggest a new terms of reference to put together a parking plan implementation committee, primarily to work on the zoning, identifying.
Designation?
Yeah. And then also for the committee to work with staff on the design and implementation of the programs. Move forward with implementation of certain programs as quickly as possible based on feedback. Okay, the last one actually goes back to point 3. So that's really it in a nutshell. Ruth, did you have something?
Well, no, I think we covered, I mean, there's lots of other material that could fill in this to make it a very large document, but, yeah, I think that where we were feeling was that the actual implementation, like some of these recommendations it needs to be back and forth with staff to make sure, as you said, that when you make a change, anything that's sensitive with parking is,
I mean, especially based on our,
council to make it successful.
I think especially based on our last meeting with Peter, it really helped show that the committee needs to work closely with staff in designing these programs and its implementation. So the resolution would be, so do I pass, like, what is the next, what should I do? Do I put forward a resolution?
There was a resolution here that's stated in the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Receive the parking plan for staff to draft new terms of reference for the parking plan implementation committee. Perhaps prior to that taking place, motion perhaps to adopt the plan, or those portions of it which can be phased in now as opposed to later. I don't know, I mean, at this point, I think there's probably some discussion required.
Well, I'll be blunt. Thank you very much. This is just an awful lot of work, and it took a lot of time to get here, and thank you doesn't say it enough. So, that said, I mean, I came early and looked at it, and I've listened, and I feel like I'm more at a committee meeting than at a council meeting. And we're kind of talking over options and this and that. I mean, my sense here is that you've got a holistic plan here, but not quite a roadmap of how you're going to put it in place. And maybe that's your plan, is to get it to the next committee or the new terms of reference. So for me, two things jump out. One, two of our colleagues aren't here, and I'm loath to do consuming legislation without the full house in place. So that's the first piece. But I could step into this if this was a rather scaled back ask, like you zeroed in on what you want to get going right now versus the dozens of pages here plus background data. And I guess I could go more, if I'm going to work with this telephone book, I needed it to be really quantified, just in the bigger picture for me, but also thinking how much, I mean, I would swivel to the left and say, how much staff time are we talking about here? So that would be my thoughts.
Yeah, well put. At this stage of the game, I think what we see here is some recommendations. I don't know that I would call this a plan, a holistic plan yet. I see some quite specific small recommendations to change the design of the residential parking permit to a communication plan. My big concern is you change one thing, you push one thing, what's going to change elsewhere? You move a problem from one place to another, we don't know what's going to happen. In the time available to us, and the time is the summer, what can we do?
That's where I'm going to, Helen. I think you're going to have to noodle this and come back with 3 points and say, this can be accomplished. And then even on the page 15, which is, you're basically setting up a committee for the next year to do the legwork throughout the community, to do the streets. I mean, I kind of buy into the bigger picture. I'm also of Carl's view that it's a whole bunch of somewhat congruent ideas, but it's not the full plan yet because you haven't done all the work yet, or it has not you. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, again, let me just say thank you a whole bunch on this one, but I think to to become immediately effective on some of the stuff, you have to skinny down and be specific with what your ask is. And if you want to push that to, I mean, I don't know, the next hour, what you're going to talk about it. I mean, put the recommendation forward. Like I said, I don't know what you're thinking here, what you really want to do, but if you have a couple of things. But, you know, to Carl's point, I mean, for me, you know, the color of the decal or what the wording is,
I know.
it's, you know, it's symbolic in a lot of ways, but that's not gonna make people not park or whatever. So that's my feedback, you know, and as a chair, how do you wanna go?
Yeah, I mean, I would second that almost word for word. So,
So we can ask that you receive this plan as is, and then we can come back with 3.
Well, I think there's certain things that you can, I mean, kind of need to know what kind of a, you know, whether it's this or whether it's a clear sticker. I think it would be, if you guys are good with the clear sticker, then we'll just do it. We need to do that
Well, a
now.
bunch of this is, Peter says this is operational, right?
Sure, but there's some things that, you know, like this, the guest pass thing, number 3, we could do that. That's pretty straightforward. Towing policy, I'll continue to review and come back with a recommended final version for further discussion. Got a little bit of time on that. Number 5 is not going to happen this year. Number 6, Lions Bay Beach parking lot. Sounds like, you know, that's ready to go, and we should try the higher price and get a feel for, you know, what's the, you know, will people pay that 15? No problem. Will we? So, I mean, that's the recommendation. I would say try it, but that.
yeah, my concern on
It's
all
not.
of those
It's
is
not a big.
these are to me these are not part of a holistic plan. So you know, sure we could do a guest pass system, but without a change in the signage, what's it going to help? People are going to park wherever they're going to park because there's no signs that forbid them from parking there. Similarly, for changing the format of the paid parking pass at the beach parking lot, without a change in signage, nothing's going to really change other than the price.
Well, the parking lot, the beach parking lots, you know, those are key places that I think we need to
Yeah, but I don't see a change.
clarify signage on.
What is actually going to change people's behaviour?
Well,
I don't see a change in the signage being recommended, because that's the
so
zone thing.
there is recommendations for overhauling signage, but we're not going to
There's no
get.
budget,
We're not
so-
going to overhaul all the signage, but
Yeah,
there's.
that's not going to happen this
I'm
year.
saying that a couple of spots where, like for example, in the Lions Bay Beach parking lot, if you're going to change it to a 3-hour, then obviously we need a sign that says 3 hours for visitors.
Yeah, my big concern would be that's how we've always approached it up to now. We've always sort of just expanded the signs everywhere without a holistic plan. You only have to go down to Kelvin Grove to see the number of signs that have grown to try and solve it. Yet another problem.
So are you suggesting we do nothing until we have a holistic strategic
Well,
plan that
let me
meets?
phrase this a different way. There's 3 of us here today. So if you want something to be accomplished, you have to figure what works for everybody here. Or else this can be really quick. So, I mean, if you want to, like I said, noodle for the, I mean, I'm fine with it coming up, well, it's going to come up again tonight. So if you, as Peter's just starting to go through this stuff, I mean, we can,
I would like actually Peter to finish, because you can identify the programs that we can actually.
Well, what we're asking about here is this is the parking plan
Yes.
that the committee is going to submit to council.
Yes.
What the recommendation is not the individual pieces, that's in the plan. What I need to know is, what is the committee's recommendation for this plan? Do you want us to receive it, adopt it, strike another committee? I see all of these in recommendations.
well, they're all in there.
Um,
And Peter's offering to, with the staff time that parts of this could be accomplished.
Well, I
But that's
would,
neither here nor there in terms of what council needs to do with it.
Yeah,
so I would like council to adopt it.
I would struggle with that.
Yeah,
Okay, but that's what I would ideally want, but if not, then at least select some programs from it that we can
Okay, so it
implement.
could be received,
Mhm.
and you could have some short-term things that may not be holistic in the bigger thing, but you think you could do it now at low cost.
Because I think that it does address issues without the need for additional resources behind it.
addresses some issues.
Yeah.
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 So I think we need to figure out what those are.
So I think a big piece of this is the communication piece at number 10. You know, if council looked at this and said, well, this is something that is a direction in which we can see moving, but we're clearly not going to be able to implement it all at once. But the communication, I think, at this stage, because probably the public is expecting something, so there, you know, it would be important to say, this has been a lot of work. This is what it looks like, but in terms of budgeting some of these things, it just can't happen this year. There's still a lot of designation of parking type work that needs to be done. There will be some things that can be implemented this year, and but yeah, the communication needs to be more of a holistic, high-level information piece, I think. But clarifying that the go forward is a piecemeal for now, for this year.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you very much, Ruth.
Yeah, I think that's important, and it's an opportunity that we shouldn't miss. And as you say, residents are anticipating that we do present something.
Again, to try and drive to a conclusion here, I think that for me, holistically adopting it just wouldn't work for me. I receive it, yes, with specific recommendations before you go to page 15, which is a lot of recommendations. But I could see you doing a boiled down piece where you went through your 12 points, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even on something as, let's just pick the obvious one, is it ticket warn and tow, ticket double warn and tow, no tow? I mean, that's an issue, because who knows what everybody wants to do. So you can flow through these pieces, find what you think can be implemented now, present them tonight. Are you fine with that, Carl, to zero in
I
on
don't think
on a couple things?
I can't do that unilaterally, can I? Just pick these myself.
No,
No.
we'd have to have we needed a plan. We needed a plan some time ago. So it's here today. This it has to go on this. I mean, I suppose what this committee can do is recommend the receipt of the plan, and then it can be taken from there by staff and the committee. That's about all I would be prepared to support. Speaking
Well, there's
from the
your
council meeting.
veto vote then, so.
Well, the committee is recommending that council adopt this plan. Council, on the other hand, can say, sorry, but we will receive the plan,
Okay.
subject to further discussion.
So is
I
that
think-
the
I think that's
recommendation?
what the committee has recommended.
The council, so the committee would recommend, because it says here receive.
Well, I think it says on the agenda, I thought it said receive. Oh, it's not, no, it doesn't.
It's just a presentation. Yeah. So I mean, if
So can you receive it and then not adopt it, but say, okay, but we would take
Well,
out.
then you're gonna have to pick up the pieces.
yeah,
that
because
you-
the council is not going to pick what it needed the committee to do that.
So
to
either
come up
you,
with
the
a plan.
chair, has to say you're speaking
But
on
the
behalf
committee
of
is
the
done with the
committee.
delivery of the report.
Yeah, we're done. We don't,
You're done, you're not
Yeah.
moving anymore?
what do you mean?
So,
Well,
We've
it's
completed,
mandate.
we've completed our,
so you'd be asking council to pick out pieces of the plan?
no, if you want, the committee can pick it out, but I can't do
Okay.
it on my
All right,
own.
then fine, I would receive it. I would be toward receiving it, come back at the next meeting, zero in on the
Okay.
parts of it.
Okay, so the
It's just that
recommendation
this
of
one-
this committee is that council receive the report.
Well, are we doing this now or tonight? I guess we're receiving it
We're making a
now.
recommendation to council.
Okay, so I would be amenable to receiving it,
Okay.
and you take it away and do your next little bit of committee work and with staff and come up with the short stuff, and then see how this works with your page 15, if you guys are all jumping ship or what you're doing.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. Receipt
So
only.
So it goes back to you, the chair.
So I can come back with just a short list of programs.
No.
No,
No, you said you
there'd be no
couldn't do-
basis for you to do that.
Yeah, you said
You've
wanted to
delivered
watch your
the
No,
report.
I
committee.
said I can't do it on my own, but if
Okay.
I met with the committee,
Yes, if your
can we do
committee
that?
comes.
Well, if
Yes.
council
Review.
authorizes, because this is the, the committee was set up to deliver a parking plan to council. Here is the parking plan. We'll receive it, and then council may decide to do more about it later, and we'll discuss that in the council meeting. Ideally, what we would do is then hand the plan over to staff and say, make it happen, and here's how. 2 inches of here's how, or in this case, 30 pages of here's how. There's little here to act on. There's about 5 things, you pointed them out, that can be done this year,
I don't know if there's 5.
given budget.
There's a few things.
A new decal, well, not really, that would have been done anyway. A daily parking pass, potentially putting a sign up at the entrance to Brunswick Beach.
But if we did this the reverse way, that we consider accepting this and the data with our gratitude and thanks, and that Peter and Helen take it upon themselves to say some of this will be operational, some of this will be, you may want to touch base with your committee, that here are a couple of things that you would recommend to council.
I can bring it through the IRR, right?
No, I thought you were going to go back to the committee.
Oh,
Be a
okay.
little
Yeah.
backdoorish. Because
Okay,
then you
yes.
get your veto that way. You don't get
All right.
turned down.
Okay, yes, I will. It's just that this one required.
I mean, really,
You
what
wanted
it-
us
I mean,
to-
Carl, at the end of the
okay.
day, I mean, you've got the controlling vote here. I mean, it's whether you're gonna do some of the smaller piecemeal stuff or just call it a day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm fine with piecemeal to the extent that we have the resource to do it. I just don't understand what the benefit would be to change much until we have a holistic plan.
I'm
But why not?
fine.
No, but why not change what we can with, especially
yes,
with regards
so
to the
he's-
marina, right?
Well, what are we changing?
Well, we're actually with regards to the marina. There's no policy in place. It's all very confusing.
When
Ken
you
says
say the
his-
marina, you mean Ken selling
Ken,
our parking
Ken selling
passes?
our parking pass, and Ken says he's frustrated because he doesn't know, rules keep on changing on him.
Okay, well, so what's the recommendation on the rules?
I don't know.
Then
Well,
go
there
back.
you go.
But
Now,
Ruth
there we go.
will, Ruth will work.
The committee is done. The committee is done with it. Frankly, the committee's done. So the report's been delivered.
Just as a technicality, I think you pointed this out. I mean, does the committee have some life for a little bit more to come forward with one small set of recommendations?
Not according to its terms of reference.
Okay.
So we're done. So none of these, even though we can do something this summer,
All
we're
right, so
not
then,
going to.
okay, then let's,
So I think,
you could put forward a recommendation on some of these.
Yeah, based on the findings of this report.
So, there you go.
Okay.
There you
The
go.
IRR.
Well,
No,
yeah,
even we can even make it a
but
resolution.
But
Okay.
council says
Yes.
yes or no on the
Okay.
IRA, which is
Alright.
what Peter's been
Okay.
trying to get us to do all along.
Okay, I could do it that way.
Yep.
Okay, so that was a recommendation. The recommendation is to council will be to receive this report. This committee, committee of the whole, its recommendation.
Sorry.
All in favour? I haven't got a second. Second, all in favour, opposed, carried. Okay.
And do I need to bring it back this evening? Yes.
No,
Yes.
staff will
yeah, it'll be carried forward.
carry it forward, and the
Meeting.
recommendation will be tabled and all that stuff.
All right.
No public questions.
Good. Motion to adjourn. Second, all in favour, opposed? You want to keep going? Was that a purpose?
Oh, no, sorry.
People can't get enough of it. I mean,
In this case, you're allowed to vote.
I have to write a report, get a financial statements approved.